Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Became Gotham's Vigilante? Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Lost Justice. I don't own MHA or DC. Izuku Midoriya believed he had perished in the ultimate battle against All for One and Shigaraki. However, that was not his fate. Awakening in an unfamiliar world where superheroes are ignorant of quirks, the once defeated hero confronts his new reality by doing what he excels at, being a hero and rescuing others. Yes, but this time, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Warning: this story will contain mature themes, such as strong language, some blood, and gore, and will be an overall mature story, just to be safe. Read with caution. His also contains manga spoilers for the final chapters of the MHA manga. Don't care for future spoilers, then please proceed. Other than that, enjoy. Prologue. Final sacrifices and a new beginning. It was over. Izuku ultimately fulfilled his duty. Unfortunately, it was at the cost of his life. His body was limp and numb from exhaustion, no longer registering any sensation. Both hands were smeared with blood, the blood of his adversaries, as the young hero acknowledged that the battle had aggravated his scars. Izuku was indifferent. Ultimately, it proved to be worthwhile in the end. In the ultimate showdown with All for One, ensnared within Shigaraki's form, he realizes that he is merely a pawn, manipulated by the villain himself, serving as a mere vessel. At that moment, Tamura understands that his rage was for naught, swearing to obliterate anything that evokes memories of his wretched upbringing in that accursed home. Deep down, Izuku understood that despite Tamura's past actions, he yearned to rescue him from his darkness. Tamura's hatred fueled his rage throughout his life as a villain, yet Izuku recognized the necessity to confront Shigaraki. In their ultimate confrontation, Shigaraki, wielding all 6 quirks of One for All, deployed them, diminishing the power of the malevolent All for One and supposedly leaving Izuku with the fading remnants of the quirk. At this moment, he was conversing with the vestiges, making the most of the dwindling time before their connection would be severed forever. "It's time, kid," Yoichi called out to the final inheritor of One for All. Izuku heard Yoichi's words call out to him, knowing this was the end of the line for him. "You did good, kid. You were the best of us," Hikage informed, acknowledging the fact that Izuku was the true successor of the stockpile quirk. Izuku was aware that there was some truth to it, though he knew he could have performed better. If he had been the best, he wouldn't be teetering on the edge of death. There would come a time when he'd long to be back home, just a child again, watching videos of pro heroes online, feeling inspired to aid others simply for the honor of being a hero. Banjo's face bore a grave expression, the weight of guilt evident in his gaze. "We're sorry it had to be like this, kid. You didn't deserve to go through this," he said, guilt weighing on his voice. The same couldn't be said for Nana, who appeared to be on the brink of tears. We're sorry. Sorry." She continued to apologize repeatedly, her lips quivering into a frown. Izuku understood that neither Nana-san nor any of the vestiges were to blame. He had agreed to this responsibility the moment he accepted the power of One for All, the day All Might bestowed upon him his quirk. "Nana-san, it's okay. I'm not afraid." Izuku finally spoke out, not angry with her or the other vestiges. The green-haired boy has grown into a man on his quest to master One for All. He aims to become the next symbol of peace and uphold the grand legacy of All Might, fully aware of the enormity of this undertaking. It wasn't easy, of course. In the climactic fight, All for One, the crazed villain possessed Shigaraki. However, the imposter demon lord lost control when Shigaraki uncovered his mentor's real intentions. Consequently, Shigaraki began to destroy All for One by attacking its core, ultimately causing its demise. Consequently, the process almost proved fatal for Shigaraki, as his body began to crumble from the side effects of the quirk transfer. Izuku remembers Tamura's last words. He longed for things to be different, to recognize that a fragment of his former self lingered within. Izuku wished Tamura no suffering, yet he understood it was too late this time. Thus, he proceeded to defeat Shigaraki, aware that it was the sole method to halt him. In his final wish, Tamura asked Izuku to convey to all his dear ones the message to persist in their goals and strive for their best in the future, with the comforting knowledge that his soul had found some form of salvation. Regrettably, Izuku had hoped to act sooner, before the loss of many innocent lives. The young successor to One for All understood that once everything ended, he would be not only quirkless but also close to death, as he was aware that his time was running short. With that, Izuku knew there wasn't much time to begin with since he only had a few minutes to speak with the vestiges. Yoichi knew he needed to get his point across quickly, knowing this would be the last time he would see Izuku after the transfer. Ninth, we don't have time to talk, so we must make this quick. I understand, Yosen, Izuku voiced, knowing this was only a matter of time before he was gone. So, this is it. After this, All for One will die, along with One for All disappearing forever as well. The first inheritor of One for All nodded, confirming his answer. Indeed, ninth, One for All, and All for One will be gone for eternity, and my brother won't be around to hurt people, further abusing his quirk for pragmatic reasons. Yoichi's voice resonated with a calm authority as he laid out the stark reality before them. Izuku nodded, fully grasping the weight of the villain's actions and the inevitable fallout that would follow. Yeah, that's what he thought. So this really is it, Izuku muttered, realizing these were his last moments in life. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to keep the spirit of One for All alive. Yoichi shook his head sideways. No, this was not your fault, Ninth. It was my brother's. He was the one who manipulated Seventh's grandson into doing his bidding. It wasn't until you convinced him to change for the better, even if you had to take drastic measures, that you stopped him in the end. The first One for All user advised, reminding Izuku that his efforts were not in vain. So, what's going to happen? Will I lose One for All forever? Izuku inquired, his voice tinged with a hint of hope. It couldn't be. After everything that had occurred, with Izuku mastering the quirk and claiming it as his own, he would ultimately lose it, albeit for a noble cause. Nevertheless, he found it hard to accept that this would mark the end of wielding the power granted to him. Yoichi wore a solemn expression, aware of the thoughts preoccupying Izuku. Only the quirk itself, you will only have the remaining embers of the quirk. That means you will lose connections with us since One for All will be destroyed for eternity. But I'll be dead, Izuku reminded morbidly. The only reason why I'm even alive is because I'm talking with you guys in the mindscape. Once this conversation, I won't be around anymore. Tears streamed from Nana's eyes as she was overwhelmed with sadness by Izuku's tragic destiny. It mirrored the fate of her grandson. Yet again, another young life was on the brink of being lost, and she was powerless to prevent it. We're sorry, Ninth. You didn't need to go through this. Nana cried, feeling sorry for the young successor. Izuku's smile was fleeting, a silent acknowledgement of the destiny he had embraced. It's okay. Sometimes, you can't save everyone, the young hero in training said with no regrets. Goodbye, Ninth. You were the best of us all. You have made all of us proud for avenging each of our legacies, Yoichi stated, acknowledging Izuku as the final inheritor of One for All. Izuku smiled, feeling grateful to be part of this journey, to be part of a legacy more extraordinary than he had initially anticipated. Goodbye, everyone, I won't forget you. Izuku looked at all of the vestiges, and he could feel the embers of One for All fading away. With that, Izuku closed his eyes and welcomed the cold embrace of death. He understood this was his end, having accepted his fate from the beginning. Everything went silent, the entire mindscape disappearing as each of the vestiges began to vanish. The whole quirk transfer was complete as Izuku saw nothing but white across the empty void. Emptiness. There was nothing but emptiness. Is this what death felt like? It felt quiet, yet peaceful, all at once. Suddenly, Izuku heard nothing but a voice call out to him, surprising the final inheritor, knowing that this was a big surprise for him. This is not over for you. Izuku blinked in surprise, his head turning rapidly. He tried to locate the voice around him, but to his astonishment, no one was there. Who said that? Izuku questioned frantically, attempting to find the voice. Your adventure is not over yet, Izuku Midoriya, the voice repeated, causing Izuku to look in wonder. He began to ponder who was talking to him. Adventure? What adventure? What or who was saying that? What did they mean by that? Who are you? What are you? Izuku questioned frantically, still searching for the source of the voice speaking out to him, his eyes narrowing in confusion. You can be a hero still. With or without a quirk, but on this occasion you will be given access to your original powers or quirk, as you called it before. His power? Wait, was the voice perhaps referring to One for All? Did that mean dash? Quirk? Izuku questioned, gaining hope all of a sudden. Would he still have One for All? His eyes sparkled with a puppy-like sense of emerging hope. You mean I can still use One for All? He hoped that was the case. Did that mean he could still be a hero? Was that dream still eligible to happen? These were questions that Izuku wanted to know so badly. He knew this had to be it. Yes, your adventure is not over yet, but it has simply begun. You are needed somewhere. The voice continued to inform. What did the voice mean by that? Izuku became confused by those words. They didn't make sense to him, but of course, they were somewhat understanding. Izuku knew that he wouldn't see his loved ones anymore, no more classes at UA, no more lunch with his friends, no more having an everyday life after the war. This would be a different change in Izuku's life, whether it was for the worst or best for him. What do you mean? Where exactly? What adventure are you even talking about? Izuku asked. It is a world where you are to help others with your gifts, a world where you can prove to be prominent with your work, to be a champion of sorts. The voice spoke with evident pride. Champion? Another world? So, there's more than one world out there? Izuku asked, his eyes widening with a look of interest. Yes, another world where you won't be the only hero out there. Other heroes with special gifts, such as yourself. Izuku suddenly became intrigued by that statement. Other heroes? Other heroes existed in this world? So, would this so-called world be like his? Did quirks even exist in this world? Other heroes? So there will be other heroes here? Izuku asked, wondering if that was the case. Yes, you will not be the only one here. But be warned, with many heroes, there will come many villains that will be more deadly than the ones you originally faced in your world. The voice warned with concern as Izuku looked in confusion, wondering what the case was. Villains? More deadly? Are the villains in this world even deadlier than those in his old world? Are they worse than All for One? If so, what more could Izuku expect from this new reality? What challenges lie ahead for him? Regardless, Izuku understood that being a hero came with positives and negatives. It was his calling after all. I do not have time, but remember this, Izuku Midoriya, you won't be the only one in your journey. This is only the beginning of your odyssey. Izuku wasn't done at this moment. Wait, I still have more questions. Who are they? What heroes? What villains? Where am I going exactly? What do I have to do? The young inheritor of One for All continued to ask questions frantically. What you did before, but you will control your destiny this time. The voice concluded ambiguously as Izuku pondered those mysterious words, realizing there was a deeper reason for this occurrence. Once the voice had faded from the empty void, Izuku saw nothing but a blinding white light as the intense glow obscured his sight, and the void started to vanish entirely. So, Izuku Midoriya disappeared into the void, gradually accepting his destiny. His head was in shambles. His arms were sore, and he felt like he could black out again at any second. He should be dead, but he wasn't. He needed to wake up and see what had happened to him. As Izuku slowly opened his eyes, he was greeted by yet another bright, white light, and it dawned on him where he was the young inheritor of One for All. A bed. He blinked. Izuku slowly rose from where he had been lying, feeling sore. Another thing he noticed was that he was dressed in a gown with an 4 attached to his right arm. Izuku was shocked as he tried to piece together where he might be. It couldn't be, but he realized he was in a hospital, recognizing the typical surroundings of such a place. The green-haired teenager cautiously moved his limbs, stretching his legs and arms. As he glanced at his arms, his green eyes widened in surprise at an unforeseen sight. His scars had vanished. His hands were now in pristine condition. But how could he be in good condition? It seemed impossible. Hell, by all accounts, Izuku shouldn't have been alive at that moment. The young hero in training was astounded that this could be reality. As Izuku pondered his predicament, a voice unexpectedly addressed him in a language he did not anticipate hearing. "Oh, you're awake." The feminine voice turned out to be a woman with blonde hair, dressed in a nurse uniform, who slowly walked over to the green-haired teen, who looked curious. "Thank God you were unconscious when we found your body outside the building. This confirms it. He was indeed in a hospital." And wait, did that woman speak English to him? Why English all of a sudden? Unless, was Izuku located somewhere else? It wasn't making sense to him in the slightest. Fortunately for him, Izuku understood the language perfectly, thanks to his classes at UA and watching English lesson videos with all might on the internet. Yes, don't ask. Anyway, Izuku needed to know a few things, such as where he was. Where am I? Izuku asked in fluent English. "You're in Gotham General Hospital, young man. Luckily, you were in good condition when we found you outside. Especially knowing what kind of place Gotham City is, you were lucky to be found before anything bad could happen to you," the nurse said with sincereness. Gotham City? That was unfamiliar to Izuku. It sounded foreign as the best way to describe it. It didn't sound Japanese. So, did that mean Izuku wasn't in Japan? In a different country? Could it be in America, perhaps? That would explain why this pleasant woman spoke in English, after all. So it was true then. Izuku had to be in a different world. No, there had to be more than that. Izuku needed to be sure, just in case. "Excuse me, miss?" Izuku inquired politely. "This might sound odd, but can you tell what city this state is in?" he asked again politely. "Gotham City is in New Jersey." The nurse answered as Izuku raised a brow in suspicion. No, this had to be a dream. Right? Once again, Izuku wanted to make sure. New Jersey? That's in America, right? Izuku further inquired. The nurse nodded, though a bit dubious. "Right indeed. In America. Are you all right, young man?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Izuku let out, allowing his thoughts to keep him company. Unbelievable. He was in America. In the United freaking States of America. So I'm not in Japan anymore. Am I really in a different world? Izuku speculates to himself. "Young man, are you sure you're feeling well? If you would you like to get some water? Anything to drink?" the nurse asked kindly, and Izuku slowly shook his head sideways in response. "No, thank you." Izuku declined politely. The green-haired teenager attempted to open his mouth, only to cut himself off as another question entered his mind. He wonders, "Excuse me, miss, this might sound random, but can you tell what year this is?" he inquired. "The year? It's May 20th, 2012. The nurse answered sincerely. 2012? Izuku thought in shock. His skin became pale as that morbid realization came to life. So this was real. Not only was he in a different country and city, but in a different time, far away from the era of quirks. But wait, if Izuku was far from that era, how did superheroes even exist here? What were the heroes, anyway? Izuku remembers the voice telling him about the different worlds of different heroes, but something needs to be clarified. Surprisingly, this is not the strangest thing to Izuku since he does live in a strange world. That begs the question, what did this version of Japan do? Did quirks even exist here? Izuku needed to be sure, so another question was brought to the table. "I see. I have another question for you, Mississippi," Izuku said, gaining the attention of the blonde-haired nurse. "Do you know what a quirk is?" The nurse tilted her head, a look of puzzlement crossing her face as she tried to decipher the meaning behind the green-haired teenager's words. "Quirk? What do you mean by that? Some particular habit of mine or something?" "Dress. That was not a good sign." Izuku shook his head from side to side. "Never mind, it's nothing. I'm just tired, that is all," he confessed. "Oh, I see. Then, I'll let you get some rest, young man. Speaking of which, what's your name?" The nurse asked politely. "Izuku. My name is Izuku Midoriya." Izuku politely introduced himself. "Izuku." The nurse stuttered before pronouncing correctly. It's nice to meet you, Izuku. Is this your first time in the United States? In a way, he supposes, if you don't count being stuck in a different world. Yeah, you could say that, Izuku chuckled a bit. Well, that's nice to hear. It's a shame it had to be this city of all places. The subject piqued Izuku's curiosity. He recalled the nurse mentioning that Gotham City was a place where terrible things could happen. The nurse's kind voice interrupted his thought before he could ask another question. Well, I'll let you get some rest then, Izuku. Is there anything I could get you? Warm blankets? Water? She inquired. Well, Izuku answered politely. Yeah, water's good. Thank you, miss. He politely thanked the nurse, who was content with Izuku's manners. The nurse nodded. No problem. By the way, we took the liberty of removing your clothes and placing them in a small bag. It should be on the left side of where your bed is facing, she informed the green-haired teen, who looked at the other side of the room, seeing the small bag with his clothes inside. Thank you, Mississippi. Izuku showed his appreciation once again. The nurse nodded happily before closing the door, leaving the green-haired teenager alone in the room. At that instant, Izuku carefully detached the four and cast aside the blanket, exposing his hospital gown. Placing his feet on the floor, he proceeded to walk, taking tentative steps as he was still somewhat weak from his recent awakening. Izuku was aware that he should take it easy, yet he couldn't linger any longer. After the green-haired teen steadied himself, he made his way to the small bag. Holding it, Izuku observed that it contained many of his old belongings, including his torn hero costume, yellow scarf, and signature red sneakers. Izuku sighed, aware that this was his final memento to evoke the memories of his former home. After securing what he needed, he approached the closed door and opened it. Sheet no good. The building was swarming with doctors and nurses. How could Izuku possibly find an escape from this place? As the voice had told him, Izuku still had his uses, his gifts, as far as he could remember. He wonders if it was an excellent time to test something out. Gently shutting the door and turning away, Izuku went to the closed window. As the green-haired teenager opened it, he realized he was high up in the building. Below him, bright lights and speeding cars filled the streets. Above, the night sky was dark and brooding, shrouded in a constant overcast. In a way, this city looked captivating, almost like something out of a comic book. With the small bag that contained his gear and clothes, Izuku braced for what was coming. Black whip. A black tendril sprouted from Izuku's right hand. He sensed the resurgence of Daigoro's quirk as the tendril reached out to a nearby statue. Seizing the moment, Izuku leaped and swung from the window, drawing closer to the statue. Having tested what he needed, Izuku could now ease into the comfort of knowing his powers remained with him. Float. Harnessing Nana's quirk, Izuku started to soar at incredible speeds, propelled by the high momentum from Banjo-san's quirk. It felt like he was navigating through space, courtesy of the quirk's zero-gravity effect. After locating an empty rooftop, the green-haired hero, Izuku, landed safely, marking the successful test of his quirk. Alright, not too shabby. Izuku surveyed his surroundings, trying to orient himself. Abruptly, a chill swept over him, and the young successor of One for All wrapped his arms around himself, rubbing them in an attempt to generate warmth. Izuku hadn't anticipated the chill of the city's weather. The fact that he was clad only in a hospital gown didn't help matters. Rummaging through the bag, he found Gran Torino's yellow scarf, still in decent shape as before. However, his hero costume was another story. It lay in tatters, resembling a worn-out green rag, clearly not in any condition for Izuku to wear. Which begs the question, what was Izuku going to wear? The fledgling hero exhaled deeply, aware that the task ahead might be time-consuming. It seemed it wasn't going to be easy for him at all. A few minutes later. Well, it wasn't easy, but it was something. Guided by directions from pedestrians and civilians, the green-haired teenager made his way to a clothing donation center. Despite receiving odd looks due to his somewhat unusual appearance, a challenge in itself, Izuku successfully found what he had been searching for. To blend in and deflect any lingering doubts, he swapped out his formal attire for something more laid-back and relaxed. Izuku strolled through the streets of Gotham City, clad in a green hoodie over his curly hair, dark blue cargo pants, Gran Torino's yellow scarf, and the usual red sneakers. He pondered his next move. Although he felt guilty for acquiring his attire from a donation center, he understood that remaining inconspicuous was crucial. Being spotted in a hospital gown would undoubtedly attract the wrong kind of attention. Alright, this was one step complete. Izuku faced numerous choices, yet he was still determining the right one. The young successor found himself not just in a foreign city but in an entirely different world, a distinct universe altogether if that was the case. He tried reaching out to any of the vestiges from before, but no guidance came, not a single word. Zip, zilch, zero, nada. What did that signify? Was Izuku the sole possessor of the quirk? He recalled the vestiges' words, indicating he could no longer reach them, and the other voice's proclamation that one for all would belong to him eternally. What did that imply? Had Izuku been somehow reborn in this world? The notion baffled the ninth inheritor of One for All. He wished Yoichi, Nana, Banjo, and the rest of the vestiges were here. He could use their guidance, especially All Might's. He realized that the connection to communicate with the other vestiges had disappeared, leaving him as the sole individual with access to the stockpile quirk once more. A sullen expression appeared on Izuku's face, realizing he wouldn't be able to see his loved ones again. His friends from Class 1, Uraraka, Todoroki, Ida, Kaken. His teachers and mentors. Aizawa-sensei, Present Mike, Gran Torino, Sir Night Eye, Mirio-san. His mother, All Might. They were gone, and Izuku knew he would never see them again, so he resigned to the place he had been sent. Acknowledging this reality, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath, recalling the last moments spent with his loved ones. Tears threatened to well up in the green-haired teenager's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Izuku would not cry, not this time. He knew that he had to be brave in a situation like this. After all, he was a hero, and he needed to conduct himself as one. Simultaneously, Izuku felt a sense of happiness for them, knowing his classmates and friends were destined to become esteemed heroes. His selfless deeds ensured their safety and well-being. The last time he saw them, he recognized their fierce determination to fight for peace and to restore him so they could all pursue the dreams and ambitions that led them to UA Academy. With a sigh, Izuku realized he couldn't linger on what had passed. He was present, yet utterly uncertain of his next move. However, he did recall the voice that had addressed him following his last interaction with the vestiges of One for All. His adventure was far from over. Perhaps people needed him or something along those lines. For what? By him. Izuku was open to helping others, but he questioned what action he could take. Why not opt for a pro hero such as Hawks, Best Jeanist, or Kamui Woods? Hell, All Might would seem a more suitable choice at this juncture. What was the predicament that necessitated his involvement to such an extent? Izuku was overthinking this. Maybe, just perhaps, his work was not done yet. All Might, what would you do in this situation? Izuku thought with a solemn expression. He needed a sign, something. Anything that will aid him on this occasion. Suddenly, Izuku felt a strange sensation in his head, as if something had shifted. Danger sense. Engrossed in his thoughts, Izuku was jolted back to reality by the blare of a siren. He observed a procession of police cars speeding down the street, a clear sign that trouble was brewing just around the corner. Izuku looked in curiosity as he wondered, was that a sign right there? If that is the case, he felt compelled to spring into action, as his sense of heroism was taking over. Hero complexity ran deep in Izuku's veins, a vital thread woven into the very fabric of his character. He understood that this complexity, this intricate dance of strengths and vulnerabilities, would remain by his side in this defining moment. Izuku appeared prepared to proceed traditionally, wrapping his yellow scarf around his neck and ensuring his green hoodie covered his head. Perhaps his role was not over yet. In the nights of Gotham City, the streets grew increasingly unsafe, particularly after dusk. The cars continued to drive to their next destination to locate a dangerous criminal in the city. The Gotham police were up to their necks attempting to track him down. It doesn't help that a robbery/gang war was happening almost simultaneously around the same time. Once the police cars arrived at Gotham Bank, a man in a detective uniform stepped out of the vehicle and looked around to see what the big deal was. James Gordon knew this was going to be a long night after all. "Commissioner." One of the officers greeted Gordon, looking glad to see him. Gordon approached the officer with a severe expression. "Officer Johnson, what seems to be the problem here?" he questioned. "Sir, Gotham Bank has hostages held up. It's been nearly 20 minutes since the incident happened," he answered. So just like that, more of the usual business has happened yet again in Gotham. "So, who is it this time? The Joker? Two-Face?" Gordon asked, concerned. "Black Mask, sir." The officer answered as Jim became confused by that statement. Gordon needed clarification. "Black Mask? I thought he was still held up in Arkham Asylum." The officer shook his head sideways. "No, sir. The son of a beach broke out 2 days ago. Started another gang war just recently. The streets of Gotham have been hectic since then. When have they not? This is Gotham City. The streets were always filled with crime." "He figures," Gordon said, not surprised at the commotion as he pinched the bridge of his nose, realizing it was true. If it wasn't Penguin or some other mob boss, it was Black Mask. Though, on a minor bright side, it wasn't the Joker they were dealing with. "All right, the best we can do is figure out a way to delay the situation and have your guys line up with the other station's guys. That way, those BSTRDS won't know what hit them," Gordon stated. "Yes, sir. We could wait for Batman to arrive in case of backup," another officer suggested strongly. Gordon narrowed his eyes at the officer, wishing it were that simple. If he's not busy, then maybe. For now, alert all units to be on the initiative. It's going to be a long night from here. Where was Batman? Was there any other gallery that Batman was dealing with at the moment? Gordon exhaled deeply, aware of the formidable challenge before him. Gotham City teemed with criminals and miscreants, a blighted land where peace appeared as a far-off fantasy. It fell upon a solitary figure, battling insurmountable odds to restore order from the clutches of chaos. Thus, it could be a while before Gotham City witnesses its era of serenity. That was if it was a possible goal. Gordon started with little. His wife had died a few years prior, killed by the maniacal Joker, the same BSRD who had terrorized Gotham for years. As for his son, his whereabouts were unknown since he was last in touch, dealing with personal issues. The sole remaining member of his family was his daughter, Barbara, and frankly, Jim Gordon couldn't fathom what he would do if something dreadful befell her. He knew he would never be able to forgive himself if such a thing occurred. Gordon closed his eyes out of stress, knowing that he was overthinking. Once Gordon had a moment to himself, he noticed something peculiar in the night sky over Gotham. Beneath his glasses, a green blur seemed to be moving towards the rooftops of Gotham Bank, an unusual sight indeed. What the hell? Alright, he still had it. A confident smirk spread across Izuku's face as he reveled in the power of his stockpile quirk. The raw energy surged around his body, fueling his veins with electricity. This exhilarating experience was even more special on this particular occasion, and he enjoyed every moment of it. Izuku recognized full cowling as a valuable traversal technique. He was grateful to Gran Torino, whose guidance had been crucial in mastering better control over One for All. If only the old man could see him this time. As Izuku landed on the rooftop, he quickly grasped the situation. Such scenarios were not unfamiliar to him. The former UA student could tell from the multitude of police cars encircling the building that the authorities were handling a hostage situation. Izuku was aware that such incidents were commonplace in his original world, but not so much in this one. The scarcity of pro-heroes, primarily due to the absence of quirks, often left such problems unchecked. However, Izuku noted that, at this moment, there were no heroes on the scene. This left only him. Ordinarily, if this were the time when Izuku was merely a quirkless middle school student without a license, he would have deferred to the pro-heroes. However, this world was unlike his own. Izuku understood that he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. It was time to test his abilities once more. From his vantage point on the rooftop, Izuku observed through one of the windows that the situation was an armed robbery with hostages involved. He could see several gunmen holding the hostages at gunpoint, which meant he had to act cautiously to prevent any harm to the innocents if he didn't intervene. Izuku couldn't ascertain the total number of robbers inside the building, reasoning that there must be additional ones prepared to rob a bank. However, from his vantage point at the window, he could see 12 men and 15 hostages. This indicated a higher likelihood of casualties should Izuku fail to act swiftly. Fortunately, Izuku observed that the bank was more extensive than he was accustomed to, which meant he had to work harder to utilize his quirk effectively. Utilizing one for all at 5% or even 10% would suffice to accomplish the task. He recalled the hero rescue training from his classes, which would prepare him for any potential hostage scenarios that would be beneficial in the field. Peering out the window, Izuku spotted a man donning a black skull mask. He deduced this man was the leader, as he was the only one with such a distinctive mask, while his accomplices wore standard ski masks. This meant Izuku had to act fast and neutralize him before he had the opportunity to respond. Alright, I need to plan this out more carefully. I can't go through the front entrance, considering that would cause a commotion, so I would have to go either through the back entrance or through the window from the rooftop. The former UA student continued to strategize, realizing the other entrances that the armed men were guarding of the bank. Any of the robbers, if they have some shred of incompetence, could allow me to go through past them, allowing me to take them out one by one. I can probably use enough kinetic energy from FA Gene to enhance my speed before they even realize it. Izuku began to strategize his next moments. Alright, this was enough to understand. Let's hope he wouldn't get caught if vigilantism were illegal in this world. Okay, let's do this. What do you know? Batman is not arriving at this moment. Black Mask suppressed a chuckle, sensing that he might, for once, escape this predicament. For once, things were finally going his way. One of the hostages, who turned out to be a bank teller working there, turned to face the gang figure. Batman will be here. He will stop you. Ooh, is that right? Well, guess what? Batman ain't here. Black Mask let out, chuckling before using the edge of his gun to hit the bank teller over the head. The edge of his weapon smeared small amounts of blood as other hostages began to scream. Is that what you want? You want to end up like this wise guy here? Black Mask questioned, threatening all the hostages in the building as he began to point his gun at the rest of the civilians. Heh, that's what he thought. His crew started to encircle more hostages, each seizing portions of the money from the vault after detonating it with C4 explosives. Black Mask couldn't help but further chuckle to himself. Black Mask, or rather Roman Sonios, watched in amusement as, for once, he wanted a win to happen this time. His empire in the criminal world would rise again. Other criminals would start to fear him as well. For once, he would be in the big leagues this time. Not the Penguin. Not Two-Face. Especially not that demon clown, the Joker. FING freak. If Roman had to be honest with himself, he wouldn't mind if something terrible happened to that lunatic. If not, then Black Mask wouldn't mind but to cap him himself. Engrossed in his thoughts, Black Mask was abruptly snapped back to reality by the sound of a window breaking. He whirled around to locate the cause of the commotion. Rather than a discernible threat, the first thing he saw through his mask was a green streak hurtling towards him, landing a punch squarely on his face before he could react or reach for his weapon. What the hell? Alright, now he was getting somewhere. Izuku made a sudden leap through the window. Employing FA Gene, he swiftly incapacitated 3 of the men and a 4th one. The man in the black mask by landing a punch before the man could even register Izuku's presence in the bank. Sheet. Is that Batman? One thug questioned in shock. It can't be. He's not even wearing a costume. How did he even find us? Who cares? Waste him. Whoa, Izuku understood that. That means he needed to get a move on. The robbers opened fire on the vigilante garbed in green, and Izuku activated full cowling at 8%, effortlessly evading every bullet. To the astonishment of all, his movement was so swift it seemed instantaneous, a speed not even the famed vigilante Batman was known to achieve. Black Whip. 2 black tendrils burst from Izuku's right hand, trapping 2 armed men. With a forceful pull, Izuku brought them crashing into another pair, rendering all 4 unconscious upon impact. Izuku surveyed the scene, He had neutralized 8 of the assailants without any casualties, a commendable feat. Now he needed to subdue the remaining adversaries without complications. Danger sense. Surrounded by the crackling energy of One for All, Izuku leaped aside, evading a barrage of bullets. Mid-air, he swiftly employed Black Whip to snatch the firearm from the assailant. Landing deftly, Izuku delivered a swift punch to the goon who had fired at him, knocking him out with a single blow and sending him hurtling toward an unoccupied desk. As the final 3 bank robbers spotted Izuku on the ground, they seized the chance to try and hinder the green-clad vigilante. However, it was not going to be an easy feat. Izuku's danger sense activated, alerting him to the imminent threat. He sprinted, evading a hail of bullets, and then executed a straightforward Detroit smash, shattering the nose of one assailant amidst a loud crack and a howl of pain. But that wasn't all. Using Black Whip, Izuku ensnared the remaining 2 robbers, drawing them towards him. With a swift lift of his right leg, he delivered a powerful kick to their faces, rendering both men unconscious from the force of Izuku's relentless assault. Although Izuku was generally averse to employing violence and full force against another person, he recognized that there was no time for restraint in this situation. With people's lives at stake, Izuku understood that he could not afford to hold back. He needed to act swiftly and decisively. As Izuku surveyed the scene, he saw that all the hostages were unharmed, and the armed assailants lay on the ground, unconscious, having sustained fractures on their hands. However, this was not to imply that they had deserved such a fate. Before Izuku had the chance to inquire about everyone's safety, the click of a gun halted him. Whirling around to locate the source of the sound, he was met with a shocking sight. The same man in the black mask from before was holding a dark-haired woman and her child hostage. Izuku clenched his jaw in fury. As a dedicated UA student and a former hero in training, he found violence against the innocent, especially children, utterly intolerable. This was precisely why Izuku could never pardon someone like Overhaul, especially after the atrocities committed against Eri. In Izuku's eyes, there was no chance for redemption for such a villain. "Don't move." The man in the black mask spoke calmly, yet his voice carried a hint of rage. "If you move, I will kill this demon broad and kid if you dare make a move," he threatened as his gun moved closer to the woman's head, who began to plead for her life, causing Izuku to be enraged by the man's heartless actions. Of course, that was how a villain negotiated things. "Here's what's going to happen," the man in the black mask said before continuing. "You will get down on the ground. I'm going to continue to collect the rest of the money with your help. After this, I will send a message to the police, saying that it was some psychopath who came and shot up my men. After all, you show yourself to be a promising stranger. What do you say that once you help me collect the money, I can offer you a job to come and work with me? Does that sound good, or do you want this beach's life to be in your hands?" He continued to propose while Izuku remained silent, aware that one wrong move could forever alter this innocent woman's life. Izuku knew he could not permit that to transpire. Not while he was present. He would not allow death to occur at this moment. "Come on, make a choice, hero," Black Mask urged, his gun not leaving the trigger, as this was a situation between life and death. Izuku was aware that the man was merely stalling, but the reason remained unclear. Despite having subdued most, if not all, of his adversaries, Izuku understood that time was of the essence, especially with another innocent life hanging in the balance. So Izuku finally spoke. "All right." Black Mask smiled underneath his mask. "Hey, that's what I thought." He sneered, keeping his gun firmly aimed at the woman's head. "All right, then, go over to the vault and collect the money. After this, we'll talk about your position in my business." As Izuku made his way to the vault, he knew he had to pick the perfect moment to act. His plan was set into motion when he spotted a small stack of dollars near the vault. Seizing the opportunity, Izuku crouched by the vault and started collecting the cash while the man in the black mask observed with a hint of amusement. While this unfolded, Izuku gradually accumulated kinetic energy in his right hand, seizing a small chunk of concrete, remnants from the vault's blast. Holding the concrete fragment, he started to energize it with Fa Gene, readying himself for the subsequent action. In a swift motion, Izuku spun around and utilized FA Gene to hurl a block at the face of the man in the black mask, forcing him to release the hostage and her child and allowing Izuku to act quickly. In a subsequent rapid move, Izuku employed another burst of FA Gene to reach the assailant, seizing the man's arm. As Izuku twisted it, the man dropped the gun, which hit the ground unfired, and he screamed in agony. A gruesome crunch echoed. To complete the task, Izuku delivered a Detroit smash punch, almost breaking the black mask as the man wearing it fell unconscious, subdued by Izuku's restrained ferocity. And just like that, Izuku knew that was the end of the job. Turning to see the hostage and her child safe and sound, Izuku smiled, content with a job well done. Well, not entirely. He still had one more thing to do. "Hey, excuse me, miss," Izuku said politely, calling the attention of the woman he had just saved. "Are you all right?" he asked concernedly. "Please, thanks to you," the woman thanked out of gratitude. Izuku smiled in relief. "That's good. The police should be outside. I'm sure they can handle this from here. I already finished what I needed to do." The young vigilante spoke with satisfaction as Izuku started to activate full cowl, getting ready to take his leave. But before he could, a voice called out to him. "Wait!" Izuku halted, realizing the woman he had rescued moments earlier was calling out to him. "Who are you?" the woman asked, curious about the vigilante's actions. Before Izuku had the chance to reply, the voice of the innocent child he had rescued, along with the child's mother, interrupted him. "Are you with Batman?" the child asked innocently as Izuku stared in mild confusion and curiosity. "Batman? Hold on, could that be one of the heroes in this world?" Izuku dismissed it, recognizing the need to focus on pressing matters. Meanwhile, he observed the child's expression, filled with innocent curiosity, as the youngster wondered about his identity. Izuku couldn't help but smile beneath his yellow scarf, charmed by the child's innocent aura. "No, kid, I'm just a guy who was at the wrong place at the right time," Izuku answered vaguely before turning his attention to the mother, who looked in marvel. "Get yourself and your kid to safety. Tell the police that the situation has been handled." With that action, Izuku engaged full cowling at 10% and sprang from the window he had entered through, leaving the crowd he had just saved in a state of wonder. That was something. "Wait, are you seeing this, Commissioner?" one of the police officers asked, gaining the commissioner's interest. Gordon knew what his officer was talking about, but even still, his eyes widened at the next sight. The hostages. Were they freed? He observed the hostages emerging from the bank, alive and unharmed by the incident. Gordon was both shocked and relieved. No one was injured or killed, thank God for that at least. But how? How or what did this? Gordon was not opposed to it. He was pleased to see that these innocent people had survived, yet he pondered in God's name how they managed to do so. It couldn't have been Batman. Batman would have been the first to let him know. So who was it? A random vigilante? If that was the situation, then Gordon understood that he would have more responsibilities than before. His interest in the matter was piqued. A more extensive investigation was on the horizon than he had initially thought. Gordon sighed to himself. "Looks like this is going to be a long night. Guess I'm not coming home on time, Barbara." Of course, this was what Jim Gordon signed up for. That's life in Gotham for him. Gordon knew one thing for sure. Batman would not be happy to discover that someone had recently intruded upon his territory. Yeah, that was one conversation he was not looking forward to. It's going to be a long night for him, after all. It took a while, but he managed to get through it. Landing on top of an empty rooftop, Izuku removed his green hoodie and slowly removed the yellow scarf as he relaxed for a bit. Man, Izuku didn't want to admit it, but it felt good to be using one for all once again without the limits and backlashes of the stockpiling quirk. He had already learned from his past expressions. Nevertheless, he was relieved that everything unfolded as planned. He dashed in, overpowered all the henchmen and their leader, freed the hostages, and departed without leaving a trace for the police to follow. It wasn't that Izuku mistrusted the authorities. Still, he couldn't afford the risk of being detained for questioning, mainly since he was unfamiliar with the legal system in this city, let alone this world. Understandably, Izuku was intrigued by one question: the identity of Batman and the true heroes in society. From the innocent child's words, he remembered that this Batman, as mentioned by the henchman of the man in the black mask, was deemed the so-called protector of the city. Izuku was intrigued by the fact that in his world, at least, there was no hero known as Batman. It could not be. He could not be the only hero present. There had to be others. The more Izuku pondered the situation, the more intrigued he became, his fanboyish side emerging momentarily. Remaining composed, Izuku understood the necessity of maintaining his composure, even if it was heartening to witness glimpses of his former self emerging, albeit briefly. Izuku longed for his phone to Google these heroes. He sighed, dismissing the concern. A nearby library's computer would suffice. Honestly, Izuku was curious about these heroes without quirks. How did heroism manifest here? It seemed he had a new objective to pursue. Ensuring he was unobserved, Izuku employed float to descend securely into an alleyway. He then proceeded down a street in Gotham City, searching for a place to spend the night. The dilemma, however, was how he would manage this without any money. Once again, another problem presents itself. As Izuku walked on, his gaze was drawn to a television in a store window. The digital newsletter flashing across the screen captured the young vigilante's focus, and his eyes narrowed and then widened in response. New hero or vigilante in Gotham? Breaking news: Gotham City Bank was stormed by Black Mask's henchmen, resulting in a bank riot and hostages being taken. In a fortunate turn of events, before the situation worsened, a man clad in a green sweater and dark jeans intervened. He managed to subdue the situation, overpowering all the armed assailants, including Black Mask, and rescued the hostages. Izuku might have expected to be shocked, but he wasn't, given his recent act of vigilantism. Beneath the headline was a photograph of him wearing a green hoodie, with his face partially obscured by Gran Torino's yellow scarf and dark jeans from the donation center as he subdued the armed assailants and freed the hostages in the bank. Izuku deduced that the bank's security cameras had probably snapped the picture. Of course, what else would it be? The authorities have apprehended Black Mask, who is currently en route to Arkham Asylum. There's speculation that this vigilante may be allied with Batman, although no confirmation has been made. Commissioner Gordon and the Gotham police are actively searching for this vigilante's location. Gotham might have a new hero, should he be an ally of Batman. It seems the city's criminals now have more than one vigilante to fear. Tune in for more details at 11 p.m. The first thing Izuku needed to do was keep a low profile, but due to his hero complexity, he just had to be the bigger man here. Izuku sighed, aware that this was turning out to be anything but a good beginning. His circumstances have remained the same. The fortune or lack thereof from his former world was beginning to affect him. Izuku was aware of the challenges he was facing, yet he was ready to confront them, even in solitude for now. Izuku Midoriya was prepared to face whatever destiny awaited him next. And, hello, everyone. I hope you guys enjoy the first chapter of my MHADC FIC. Special thanks go to Marriage Alami, King 101, for beta reading this chapter. So, bet you weren't expecting a DC FIC from me. This actually has been on my mind for a while, but I wasn't sure what to cross over it until MHA ended last year, and I wanted more respect for Izuku Deku. Thus, this story was made. For people and readers wondering, yes, this is a post-final war Izuku, and he will have one for all throughout the story. There is no BS removal of his quirk and strings attached to it. The quirk is pretty much in his hands since I wasn't a fan of the MHA ending in the first place due to that sole reason. Also, don't expect Izuku to join the League quickly or come in contact with other heroes since he is in a different world filled with various heroes, including villains. He isn't sure who to trust yet, especially since this is Gotham, after all, which will be the first arc in the first couple of chapters of this story. Overall, I hope this is a strong start to the story, particularly as an original take on an MHA DC crossover. Most routes involve Izuku being born with Superman or Flash's powers or being trained by Batman as a quirkless vigilante. This approach will be unique in this context. Speaking of Batman, he and Izuku will not be on good terms at the beginning of the story, especially since another unknown vigilante is patrolling his city. There are plans for a particular vigilante who might take the mantle of being the mentor for Izuku, aka a certain red-masked vigilante with a different moral compass than Batman. Feel free to PM me on FFN and follow me on various Discord servers if you ever feel like chatting or want to catch up on updates for any future fics and Chapters 1 plan to release soon. Links for Discord servers I'm currently in. Code for Emerald Library, GG Library. Code for Eisendegoat, Can 7 FM 3 Hz. Code for Yagami, RB4 Kane. Code for Berserker Gene, Benedicti. Please leave a review, follow, and favorite this story. No flames, but constructive criticism is always welcome. With that, stay safe, stay awesome, and enjoy the rest of your year in good health with your loved ones. Adios. And I don't own MHA or DC. Warning, this chapter will contain mild, strong language and minor blood and gore. Reader's discretion is advised. A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to preserve and endure despite overwhelming obstacles. Christopher Reeve. Chapter 1. Unexpected surprises. Well, here he was. Hopefully, things will improve as time goes. Regrettably, this was not the situation for Izuku. Initially, he planned to stay in a cheap motel, as it was the best option available to him at the moment. However, a problem soon arose for the former UA student. Money. Izuku remembered he didn't have a single dime on him. The fact that the country used American dollars instead of yen, as he had learned in his lessons about currency in different countries, particularly in America, didn't help either. Consequently, he was only able to afford the most modest accommodation for the night. Izuku knew that in such a large city, there must be several homeless shelters. However, based on what Izuku had learned the previous night, many, if not all, were full, leaving no vacancies for shelter and putting the last inheritor of one for all back at square one once again. So, where was Izuku? In an abandoned building. Yep, that was correct, unfortunately. Izuku lay soundly asleep in the shadows of a long-abandoned building, surrounded by the eerie silence that came with desolation. Dust motes danced in the soft streaks of light filtering through cracked windows, casting fleeting patterns on the cold, hard floor. The remnants of a forgotten world whispered secrets, yet he remained untouched by the chaos outside, lost in a dreamscape far removed from reality. A handful of homeless individuals had previously occupied the space, but they had since departed in search of food and more room, leaving the green-haired vigilante alone in the building. The unpredictable chill in the air was far from helpful, adding an extra layer of discomfort. Izuku found solace in sleeping with his green hoodie draped over him like a blanket, and the yellow scarf provided additional warmth. After all, that was the closest he could get to feeling warm. Izuku groaned in irritation as the bright sunlight struck his face, rudely awakening the former hero in training and causing mild discomfort in his limbs. Rising from the dirty mattress he had been sleeping on, he gradually opened his eyes, stretched, and acknowledged the arrival of morning. Right, it's time to get a move on. But what could be Izuku's next move? He was looking for further signs to guide his path forward. Hold on. Izuku had something pending that he couldn't attend to last night. He needed to visit the library to research the heroes inhabiting this world, a subject that piqued his curiosity. Now, with a better understanding of how this world operates, Izuku saw an opportunity to delve into research during his free moments. He had grown accustomed to the unexpected, but even he would admit being sent to a different dimension was not something he anticipated. Izuku was uncertain whether to consider it a misfortune or not, but it was undoubtedly a staggering surprise. The fascinating aspect was that his identity remained unknown, ensuring his safety. However, this did not imply he could become complacent. Mirio-san and Aizawa-sensei had advised him that protecting one's identity through measures like wearing a mask and adopting an alias was always the safest strategy. That's why Izuku was at least aware that he could maintain a low profile if things didn't go as planned. Before the green-haired teen had the chance to move, he came to a realization. He couldn't venture out onto the streets of Gotham in his current attire. As much as he disliked admitting it, he might have to alter his wardrobe once more. Surveying the vacant building, Izuku observed numerous trash cans and several homeless people who had been sleeping there earlier. Although he disliked the idea of scavenging through garbage, he understood that options were limited. To survive in this city, he had to make do with what was available. Izuku headed towards the trash bins, the determined young vigilante continuing his search. He rummaged for 5 minutes, uncovering nothing but empty cans and bottles. However, the former hero in training was aware that these could be recycled for yen, a practice his mother had often engaged in, providing him with a possible edge. Izuku kept examining the bags until he noticed something that grabbed his attention. "Ha! Yes, got something." The green-haired teen thought contentedly, an enthusiastic expression on his face. Clothing that would allow him to blend in was readily available. Although presumably obtained from people without housing, the garments were surprisingly clean. Izuku deduced that they probably originated from a donation center. Moreover, the clothes were almost his size, not an exact match, but close enough. All right, Izuku was fortunate enough to have luck on his side. He swapped his original clothes for a long-sleeved white t-shirt, which had a few holes yet remained in fair condition, and a pair of gray sweatpants, which bore some black stains he decided not to contemplate. Izuku hoped Kaken would not be here to see him in this outfit. He never sought unwanted attention. He could hear the mocking happen from a mile away, even if they were on good terms. Fortunately, he found a gray and black hoodie on the ground, which, frankly, was a perfect addition to his attire for the occasion. Okay, he was finally ready to depart with the bag of clothes he had, which included his hero costume and other garments from the night. The green-haired inheritor of One for All can find someone to repair his costume or, better yet, offer him a new one in case his hero complexity arises again. However, due to the events of the previous night, Izuku could not risk being seen in public again, as he did not want to attract unwanted attention. It was wiser to play it safe than encounter trouble once more. 10 minutes later, Izuku kept walking through the streets. With the help of tips and directions from kind strangers, the erstwhile hero in training at last arrived at his intended destination, the library. However, en route to the library, he caught wind of a certain green-clad vigilante who had made an impression on Batman's domain thanks to his selfless deeds at Gotham's bank the previous evening. Izuku suppressed the urge to curse, aware that his actions would not be without consequences. Once he appeared on the news, there was no retracting it. Nevertheless, he harbored no regrets, for his actions were to safeguard the individuals from the previous night. Had he remained a passive observer and chosen inaction, he would be no different than the villains, such as the man in the black mask who nearly ended the lives of a mother and her child. Izuku couldn't let such scum roam the streets. While he made the correct decision, it was just unfortunate that it resulted in him being exposed on the news, making himself the focus of attention. For the former UA student, this situation was familiar territory. He was well aware of what he was stepping into. However, a pressing issue was that Izuku lacked any form of identification with him, an ID that could assist him should anyone request proof of his identity. Anyway, it didn't matter. There was something else on the young vigilante's mind. On one big hand, where was Izuku going to sleep tonight? As well, how would he be able to afford to live in a decent place? He needed income, an easier way to make money. He needed to make money to afford simple things like food, shelter, and clothes, which were essential to surviving in a prominent place like this. The more Izuku thought about it, the more he needed to think about it. Even usual pro-heroes were required to pay for stuff since this was one of the reasons why they needed the currency in the first place. But what jobs could offer him pay? Izuku had yet to learn about what kind of jobs Gotham had, but on the other hand, he could learn more about what jobs were here in Gotham. He could find something to work with. Hopefully, the library, of all places, wouldn't require any identification. He just needed to borrow a computer, and he should be all set. Clenching his hands with resolve, Izuku started to move and headed toward his destination. For once, Izuku hoped to find a silver lining in his situation. Otherwise, his efforts would have been in vain. He would demonstrate to the world that he was here. Izuku understood that this marked the commencement of a new chapter in his life. It had been a long night for him. If he had to be honest with himself, he was a little annoyed about something. In a dimly lit room, brimming with technological wonders that gave it the semblance of a cave, stood a man. He was clad in a gray and black suit, complemented by black trunks and a yellow utility belt laden with an assortment of gadgets. His attire's most striking feature was his mask, a black cowl with ear-like points, evoking the image of a bat, complete with a bat emblem. The city was always awake, plagued by unending crime, and he was determined never to cease his efforts, regardless of the circumstances. The recent surge in Gotham's criminal activities has been overwhelming, even by its standards, but he knew the risks when he enlisted. Donning the suit and mask, he confronts his deepest fears to quell the rampant chaos engulfing the city, indifferent to the personal cost, even if it means his life. Batman, also recognized as Bruce Wayne, was aware that this marked the onset of the conclusion. He persisted in his search on the large monitor, swiftly typing on the keyboard, aware that there was more to uncover following the events of the previous night. He understood precisely why Jim had reached out to him. The vigilante reported in last night's news is not to be ignored. From what Batman could gain, this vigilante seemed more experienced than what he could see. On the monitor, Batman scrutinized the security footage from Gotham Bank, his mask's white eyes fixed on the screen as he observed with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. The vigilante, clad in green, was swift, exceptionally so, as Batman observed the rapid reflexes of the emerald figure. The figure effortlessly dodged bullets and dispatched Black Mask's henchmen, moving almost like a blur. Even Flash would be impressed if he were watching this. In the video's climax, Black Mask holds a woman and her child captive, with Batman looking on in fury, powerless to intervene as the footage rolls on. The vigilante clad in green strides towards the money-filled bags, seemingly complying with Black Mask's commands, presumably to protect the hostages. Approaching the safe, the vigilante hurls a chunk of concrete at Black Mask. In a swift motion, the vigilante disarms Black Mask, twists his arm, and incapacitates him with a single punch. As a result, all the hostages were safe. Batman felt a surge of relief washing over him. As the hostages were rescued, the vigilante seen in the video leaped back to his point of origin while the police, accompanied by Gordon, arrived to witness the liberated captives. So it was true. This vigilante was indeed a metahuman. But even so, it offered more questions than answers to Batman. The caped crusader was at a loss concerning the vigilante's abilities. All Batman knew was that the hooded figure possessed super speed and perhaps super strength, evident from his ability to send henchmen flying with a single punch. This enigmatic character also utilized a form of black webbing that ensnared the henchmen with dark tendrils, leaving Batman to wonder whether it was a gadget or an inherent power. Batman found himself fixated on the video, his mind racing as he replayed the footage over and over. Each frame was a puzzle piece, and he was determined to uncover any clues that could reveal the elusive vigilante's true identity. Engrossed in the video, Batman's attention was suddenly captured by a voice calling out to him, drawing the Dark Knight's focus. "Master Bruce, are you all right?" A man sporting a mustache and gray hair, clad in a sharp tuxedo, entered the Batcave. A furrow formed on his brow, and a flicker of worry danced in his eyes as he struggled to articulate his growing unease. Without breaking his gaze from the flickering screen, Batman addressed his family butler, his voice steady and determined. "I'm fine, Alfred," he said, the weight of his words hanging in the air, thick with urgency. Alfred was well aware that this wasn't the whole truth. "Sir, would this have to be for what happened last night?" Alfred inquired. "I should have been there, Alfred. It was my fault that Black Mask managed to rob the Bank of Gotham since I wasn't there to stop it in time." Batman declared with unwavering determination. Ultimately, Gotham was his burden to bear, no one else could shoulder it. "Even so, sir, you cannot be present throughout Gotham. Individuals like that Black Mask gentleman exemplify the troublemakers in this city," Alfred declared, his tone dripping with ease. "Fortunately, sir, there was someone who succeeded in halting that madman's vile actions. Even if he is merely a vigilante," Alfred spoke with conviction, trying to brighten Batman's mood. "Master Wayne, remember, even the shadows must yield to the light." "That's the thing, Alfred. He's a vigilante, and worst of all, there isn't much." Information on him regarding metahumans. Batman turned to his loyal butler, his voice steady and resolute as he sought to clarify his intentions. And that's what troubles me the most, he continued to reveal his thoughts with growing intensity. What made matters worse was that Bruce had no valuable information on this individual, nothing significant to track him by. He had devised numerous contingency plans for the Justice League should any member go rogue, yet the lack of any leads on this vigilante's identity or weaknesses vexed Batman greatly. Alfred nodded, fully understanding the circumstances. I understand, sir. Keeping track of all the supernatural beings in this city can indeed be quite hectic. By the way, sir, I wanted to inform you that Master D plans to visit you following his trip to Bloodhaven. D. Grayson. Bruce's heart warmed with nostalgia as he remembered the former Robin, a smile breaking across his face that spoke of cherished times. Batman gave a subtle nod, his expression reflecting deep gratitude for Alfred's unwavering support. Each moment with his loyal butler reminded him of the strength that came from their bond. Thank you, Alfred. I'll contact you once I'm finished here. With a respectful nod, Alfred stepped out of the Batcave, the heavy door closing softly behind him. Alone once more, the Dark Crusader found himself enveloped in silence, the weight of his thoughts pressing down like the shadows that surrounded him. Removing his mask and cowl to reveal raven hair and blue eyes, Bruce sighed, acknowledging that he was overthinking the situation. Bruce rose from his chair, aware that he needed to dress for the evening. It had been some time since he last saw D-. Not since he departed to forge his own identity in Bloodhaven. Now is the ideal time to catch up with him. He'd better tell Tim that the former Robin would be arriving soon. Before Bruce left the Batcave, he turned his attention to face the monitor one last time, thinking back to the green-clad vigilante. Who are you, and what do you plan on doing in Gotham? Finally, there he was. Gotham's City Public Library. Cammy, he thought he would never find it. From Izuku's perspective, the library was immense, arguably one of the largest he had ever encountered. Alright, he was finally making progress. This was a significant step forward, and it felt promising. Izuku had something to work with for the time being, at least that much. He hoped not to stand out too much, especially since his attire resembled that of a homeless person, and his unkempt hair did little to help him blend in as ordinary. Izuku let out a sigh, aware that this would be a lengthy endeavor. However, there was a silver lining. As a young vigilante, this was familiar territory for him. He had grown accustomed to it. Alright, here goes nothing, Izuku murmured to himself, taking a deep breath and maintaining his composure. He was fully aware that he could not waste a single moment at this critical juncture. Unwilling to waste more time, Izuku headed towards the library entrance, disregarding the strange glances from the civilians outside. Naturally, the former UA student proceeded as though such attention was no surprise. Upon entering the library, Izuku immediately noticed the computers. Half were already occupied by young adults and children, likely engaged in research. Luckily, one computer remained available. With a sigh of relief, the young vigilante headed towards it and took a seat. As he proceeded, the computer powered on. The screen displayed as he started to navigate with the mouse, trying to log in. Izuku surmised that a proper password might not be necessary and that guest access could suffice. Of course, he managed to log into the system effortlessly. Izuku clicked on what appeared to be a login button, which opened up Google. As he began to type "Who was Batman?" into the search bar, he muttered to himself. The screen started loading, and Izuku watched, his hands tingling with anticipation as he awaited the answers to materialize from his query. To his astonishment, several million results appeared, almost overwhelming the former UA student with what he witnessed. Izuku was astounded. He had thought All Might and several other pro heroes had an extensive online presence, but this was far more significant. Gazing at the screen, Izuku observed a man clad in a gray and black suit, complete with tights and, naturally, a dark cape and mask to conceal his identity. He couldn't help but remark on the hero's appearance, which seemed straight from a classic Silver Age comic book. The green-haired teenager deduced that the enigmatic Batman had been active for quite some time, and for a compelling reason. According to his research, Gotham City was a hotbed of criminal activity, ranking as the city with the highest crime rate in the United States of America. Looking further at the article, Izuku was a bit shocked at the information. He knew that Gotham had a few troubles and crime then and there, but come on, Gotham, being the #1 city with the highest crime rate, was pushing it. Was Gotham considered to be a cursed place? It can't be. Is Gotham really this bad? Izuku pondered deeply, his thoughts swirling as he navigated the complexities of his situation. As the inheritor of One for All continued to look more into it, there was a bit of good news to it. The crime rate over the past 10 years did begin to slowly decline due to the involvement of the once again aforementioned Batman. Izuku looked intrigued once again. Batman did turn out to be more than what the former UA student initially thought beforehand. As the green-haired inheritor of One for All moved the mouse across the pad, clicking for more information and links, one caught his attention with its simplicity, just 2 words. Justice League. The Justice League. Izuku blinked in surprise, finally realizing the true identities of the world's heroes. He won't lie to himself, he was undoubtedly impressed by the outcomes. The presence of so many heroes he hadn't anticipated seeing was a surprise. In a way, it was shocking but amazing at the same time. Still, it was something. Izuku regretted not having a notebook at hand. The young vigilante longed to jot down observations on this unique occasion. However, Izuku realized the necessity of self-control. This was different from the moment he behaved like an overzealous fan. Pressing issues demanded his attention. Izuku turned his focus to the screen, persisting in his search. As more results populated the display, his attention sharpened, primarily upon citing specific images of the heroes. A man clad in red spandex, known as the Flash, could run at the speed of light, a speedster in the truest sense. Izuku was skeptical at first, but now it was clear that Ingenium had finally met his match. Green Lantern, a member of an intergalactic police force, wielded a green ring that empowered him to manifest anything he could envision. Was this akin to Yaoyorozu's quirk? It had to be the case. From what Izuku was reading in his bio, it was similar to Yaoyorozu's quirk. Both abilities involve the creation of various objects. Still, while Green Lantern's power stems from his ring, which channels imagination and willpower, Yaoyorozu's quirk transforms the molecular structure of her fat cells to materialize items. The similarity lies in the concept of creating objects from thought, yet the source and mechanism of their powers differ. Izuku continued to peruse the information. New heroes appeared, including a woman known as Wonder Woman. Hailing from the Amazon, she possessed super strength and was reputed to be a warrior clad in red and blue armor and spandex, which, because of the color resemblance, brought to mind stars and stripes. Her origins were linked to a particular island. He hoped that would be all, yet it wasn't. As his search went on, more heroes emerged. A man composed of plastic with the ability to stretch immensely, another clad in blue armor resembling an insect or beetle, capable of conjuring any weapon, and a woman in black spandex whose screams could shatter structures with their power. There was also a man in green spandex who could launch arrows with impeccable precision. Unbelievable, but hold on for a moment. If quirks didn't exist here, then how were superheroes even a thing here? Izuku, earlier when he logged on to the computer, searched up anything that involved his original world, such as quirks, pro-heroes, law enforcement, and All Might. Any connection to his world? Nothing. Izuku was back to square one. All he gained from all of this was the so-called Justice League, heroes like Batman as a good example, and the members of the team, of course. Yet, one hero captured Izuku's gaze. A man with black hair, sporting a cowlick and blue eyes, dressed in a blue suit with red tights and a cape. However, it was the large, red, shaped like a triangle on the front of his suit that stood out the most, as Izuku watched with a nostalgic expression. Superman. That was his name. All Izuku could do was watch in curiosity and marvel. He couldn't believe there was an All Might in this world. Somewhat. Nevertheless, Izuku continued to search for more information, eager to learn about this Superman character. From his findings, it appeared that Superman was an alien, an extraterrestrial being, which was astonishing. Struggling to keep his jaw from dropping, Izuku had never believed that aliens existed in reality. Even in his world, aliens were not a reality. It was truly astonishing. He must be in an alternate universe indeed. Aliens. The existence of aliens has been confirmed in this world. Ashido-san would love this, that's for sure. Izuku still couldn't believe it, his hands clenched as if to shatter any lingering denial. Yet he persisted, aware that it was time to take action. However, Izuku was still impressed. Hell, forget impressed, he was amazed about this information. As the green-haired newcomer remained focused on the screen, absorbing the details of the heroes, a voice interrupted his concentration, drawing his attention away. Wow, and I thought I was the only one who was interested in heroes. A melodic, feminine voice floated beside Izuku, drawing his attention. Izuku blinked briefly before turning to face the person who had called out to him. In an instant, he found himself looking at a girl who appeared to be about his age, if not slightly older. She had striking red hair, blue eyes, and red lipstick, all complemented by a sincere smile that spread across her face. Her outfit consisted of a purple t-shirt paired with dark blue jeans and white sneakers, rounding off her look. Izuku settled into his seat, taken aback and his eyes wide with astonishment, for he had not anticipated encountering a girl amidst the quiet stacks of the library. Suddenly, the girl paused, her expression shifting as curiosity flickered in her eyes. After a moment of silent contemplation, she broke the stillness with her words once more. "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to stare at what you were looking at. I was just curious since not many people seem to like heroes in Gotham." "Oh yes, I was looking for something. Something about heroes." Izuku spoke with unguarded sincerity, his words resonating with truth. "I can see that. Let me guess, Batman?" A mischievous grin danced across the girl's face as she made her assumptions. Izuku blinked in surprise. What was she? A mind reader? With a confident nod, Izuku solidified his answer, radiating a sense of assurance that left no room for doubt. "I was curious about who he was. At least that wasn't a lie." Izuku knew that was too good to be true. Usual Gothamites know who Batman is since he is a figure of Gotham. "You're not from around here, are you?" Barbara surmised as Izuku blushed slightly in response to the smirk she directed at him. Crap, was that obvious? What gave it away? Is it that easy to tell? Izuku questioned a bit awkwardly. "A minute and he thought he outgrew that phase." She let out a playful giggle that danced through the air, effortlessly capturing Izuku's attention once more. "A little, but it's okay. Gotham does get the occasional tourist once in a while. Considering its reputation, of course," she clarified at the end of her sentence. "Yeah, I'm sure it is," Izuku agreed, noticing the red-haired girl's expression change as realization dawned on her. "Oh, sorry, where are my manners? I'm Barbara. Barbara Gordon. And you are?" she inquired. "Izuku. My name is Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Gordon-san." Izuku introduced himself politely. "Nice to meet you too. Let me guess, Japanese?" Barbara asked. "Yep, you can say that I moved here recently," Izuku stated before continuing his sentence. "Moved from Japan a while ago." "Oh, that's great. I heard a lot of amazing things about Japan. Especially from a friend of mine who went there with his friends a few years ago. Your English is pretty fluent too." Barbara complimented the green-haired teen. "So, what brought you from Japan to here, Izuku?" I heard a lot about this city. I wanted to see it for myself," Izuku stated, aware of his purpose for being here. Barbara nodded. "Understandable. It's a big city after all. Still, you should be careful, especially at night. Gotham is not a place for everyone here." "I heard about that. It's a city filled with a lot of crime, isn't it?" Barbara nodded. "Yep, paradise, isn't it?" she quipped a little. Izuku agreed. "Yeah, believe me, I'm used to it," he quipped, fully aware that it was just another familiar tale. "So, how long are you staying in Gotham for?" Barbara asked curiously. Izuku paused for a moment, running a hand through his messy hair as a spark of inspiration flickered in his mind. He was determined to find a solution, and with a sudden grin, he conjured up an idea just in time. Hard to say. Most likely for a couple of months. At the very least, I want to learn more about this city and its heroes. Barbara got the gist of it, becoming interested in the green-haired teen's words. Oh, I see. So, are you some kind of fanboy? From what I'm assuming. She lightly jokes, adding a spark of cheer. Izuku let out a soft laugh, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes, fully aware that there was a grain of truth to that statement. Yeah, you can say that. I've always admired heroes since I was just a kid, he admitted honestly. And by admiring heroes, he kept hero merch in his room and took notes of their unique quirks. Then, yeah, he admired them greatly. He still has that limited edition All Might figurine in his room, which reminds him that he hoped his mother wouldn't throw it away in the garbage. That's still in mint condition. Barbara's eyes sparkled with understanding. She was all too familiar with what Izuku was referring to. Yeah, believe me, I know how you're feeling. My dad's in the police force. While he may not wear a cape or a mask like Batman or Superman, I've always admired what he does because he does the right thing in the end. Izuku grasped that concept with clarity. His eyes narrowed, reflecting his understanding of the importance of having a role model. He knew that the greatest heroes don't need to don a cape to demonstrate their concern. Instead, their deeds resonate more profoundly than any words could. It was that very experience that ignited an unquenchable inspiration within Izuku. It's what I wish to be when I get a chance to explore a future career soon, Barbara said, further gaining Izuku's attention, who just sat back and understood what Barbara was talking about. Izuku nodded, understanding what the red-haired girl meant by that. It is an admirable goal, Gordon-san. Your father sounds like a good man, and having role models like him is always nice to have. Barbara shook her head. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's because of what he does that inspires me to look up to people like him. Izuku delivered a small smile, happy to hear that this girl he had just met was already glad to have essential figures in her life. While the former U.S. student was in his thoughts, the voice of Barbara broke him out of his introspections. Well, I'll let you get back to what you're doing. I gotta get back to rest tacking books on the shelves. Barbara realized the urgency of her job as the clock ticked away, each second a reminder of looming deadlines. Oh, you work here? Izuku questioned. Barbara nodded with conviction, clearly affirming her choice and inspiring confidence in her decision. Yep, mainly volunteer work for school. Believe it or not, the library is one of the few things that I do enjoy in Gotham. If you ignore the crime rate, that is, she added on that last part. Izuku gave a thoughtful nod, his eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and understanding. Yeah, can't imagine that. At least you found something to enjoy here. Even if it is one thing at the moment. True, it is home after all. Anyway, I have to get back to those books. It's been nice talking to you, Izuku. If you're in town or if you plan to stop by the library again, I can ask my manager to give you a library card on the house. She's usually nice to everyone. Barbara offered to the green-haired teen, who responded with a shy smile and a humble but hesitant expression. Oh, that's okay. I don't want to be a bother to you or be friends with you to get a few things on the house. Izuku hesitated, a mix of determination and respect in his eyes. He didn't want to exploit the girl's kindness or her situation at work. Barbara, on the other hand, waved it off. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Consider it a gift for the good conversation we'd have. It's nice to see more pleasant people in Gotham after all. Pleasant people in Gotham? Again, were there not many good people in this city? Yeah, sure. I mean, if that's okay with you. Izuku spoke up, his tone revealing the struggle within him. Of course, anyway, I'll let you get back to what you were doing. Be seeing you someday, Izuku. And hey, maybe one day, you'll get to meet Batman or the Justice League one day. Just hope it's under good circumstances. Barbara, with a warm smile, playfully joked, effortlessly lifting the spirits of everyone around her. Izuku let out a light chuckle, a spark of irony dancing in his eyes as he fully grasped the humor behind the joke. Yeah, maybe one day, Gordon-san. Barbara shook her head, giggling at the green-haired teen's words. Enough with the honorifics, just call me Barbara. Izuku momentarily froze in surprise, but then he quickly returned a radiant smile, conveying his genuine enthusiasm. Okay, Barbara-san. Barbara smiled in return. All right then, Well, I'll be seeing you, Izuku. Take care and stay safe in Gotham. Barbara said before returning one last smile and leaving the green-haired teen alone where he was. Wow, okay, if Izuku had to be honest with himself, he wasn't expecting to meet someone as pleasant in this city. It looks like Gotham wasn't as bad with people as Izuku made it out to be. Anyway, that being said, Izuku continued to search for more clues. As the seconds ticked by, anticipation hung thick in the air, and just when hope seemed to waver, Izuku's patience finally bore fruit. He had achieved what he set out for, and the moment was finally his. There were a couple of jobs that weren't too far from here. Maybe Izuku could start from there. While Izuku continued to look at the various articles and mentions of the different heroes and villains, which included the list of Batman's rogue gallery, Izuku noticed the time on the computer, realizing it was getting he'd better make his way soon over there. Izuku was convinced that events were becoming increasingly fascinating. All right. In just a few hours, she had finished rest-tacking. Barbara kept arranging the books on a small shelf. She had taken up work in the library after school, utilizing her ample free time when not on patrol. And by patrol, she refers to donning a bat costume and confronting criminals in the vast Gothic city. Yeah, that was putting it. Speaking of which, Barbara recalls the previous night's chaos, marked by her efforts to thwart drug dealers and gang members in various parts of Gotham City. She wonders if it was just her perception or if the criminals were indeed seeking more attention. Regardless, Barbara sensed there was something greater at play. Aside from her work at the library, visiting her father, and patrolling the night under her alias, Batgirl, her routine remained essentially unchanged. She anticipated this evening would be no different. Heading to the Batcave, gearing up for the night, combating crime and apprehending criminals, then returning home to do it all over again the next day. Barbara exhaled deeply while she finished arranging the final set of books, recalling her father's words from the other night. Her father, along with Gotham's police force, had apprehended Black Mask, but they weren't alone. Her father hadn't had to lift a finger or even Batman himself. No, instead, someone else had stepped in. A vigilante. One that she wasn't familiar with. It was unusual, but Barbara found herself intrigued by last night's news. She felt a sense of respect for the individual who saved innocent lives and civilians, yet she was aware that Batman would likely disapprove of this. Especially since whoever this guy was, he was playing on marked territory. That's not to say that Barbara had anything ill against him, but even so, she knew that he was playing fire at this point. Already, Barbara could see the strict reaction on Bruce. She knew this was going to lead to future tension soon. On the plus side, earlier, not too long ago, Barbara did manage to make friendly conversation with a foreigner, someone who seemed innocent, all due to sharing an interest in heroes. Even if he sported green hair, who was Barbara to judge? After all, she fought crime with a man dressed as a bat while she dressed as a bat as well. What does that tell you? She wondered if he had dyed his hair green, as it was common for teenagers to change their hair color. She had observed this trend during her high school years and now in college. Therefore, she opted to be silent, acknowledging that it was not Barbara's business. Overall, the next time she saw Kara, she knew she had to share this. Unfortunately, she was occupied in Metropolis, but Barbara did ponder what it was like to work with her cousin, the big man who flew in the skies. Either way, it was something that couldn't wait, a thought that buzzed in her mind like a secret waiting to be unveiled. Barbara didn't expect to hear that he was from a different country, Japan, of all places, since she did want to visit Japan and other countries in the future. It'd be a nice change from the usual time in Gotham. Yep, even Gotham can become dull occasionally, and she was practically a superhero, which speaks volumes about her. Reflecting on Japan, she remembered one of her former teammates from the Bat family, Dick Grayson, formerly known as Robin. Now, going by Night Eye, he had traveled to Japan while residing in Jump City with his friends. He still bore the name Robin during that time to solve a case there alongside his fellow teammates, the Titans. She had also heard that her friend Dee became very close to one of his teammates by the name of Starfire, and in all honesty, Barbara was glad for her friend, even if they had a brief relationship for a while before parting ways as friends. Even so, Barbara found a glimmer of happiness in this moment. Somewhat. She looked at the clock in the library, realizing it was getting late. Barbara needed to finish it up here, or else she would get home late. Looking ahead, she reassured herself that the streets would still be there tomorrow, offering her another chance to make a difference. In the end, Barbara couldn't shake the feeling that she had forged a genuine friendship today. Meanwhile, in another part of Gotham. Just great. FING spectacular. After days of planning this small operation, he came close to winning, but he and his men were thwarted. All of that planning for nothing, weeks of trying to throw the bat off, only to be stopped in a punch. He wore a massive, sinister-looking purple bruise on his left cheek, which stood out against the cracked remnants of his mask that clung to his face. But that wasn't the part that set him off. No. It could have been the bat or one of his kitten little sidekicks to put him behind bars again. Hell, he'll take one of those assholes from the Justice League for that matter. No, it was the fact that a random BSTRD wearing nothing but a green sweater and casual clothes managed to put an end to his plans. Unbelievable. All of that time, effort, and planning was wasted for nothing. He pours his blood, sweat, and determination to gain an advantage over those costumed BSRDs, only for his plan to be foiled by a kid-playing hero. Roman Sonios was said. A dark purple bruise on his cheek was a stark reminder of what he had just endured. And now, he was being transported to Arkham Asylum again. He just hoped that he wouldn't have to be stuck in a cell next to that clown again. FING hell. This should not be happening to him. Roman knew that once he got out of there, he would find a way to make that vigilante pay for what he had done. Or better yet, find that BSTRD's loved ones and make him suffer for what he did. Just for ruining his plans, he vowed to uncover the identity of this vigilante and kill him to demonstrate that he was serious this time. What he would kill for a drink. As the transport vehicle continued to drive on its way to Arkham Asylum, two of the guards who were driving noticed something. "What the?" the guard driving the vehicle exclaimed. In an unforeseen turn of events, the tires abruptly propelled the vehicle perilously to a tree. The car collided, smoke emanating from the armored van's engine, prompting both guards to awaken swiftly and observe the incident that had just transpired. "Sheet! What happened?" yelled one of the guards. The other guard shook his head, uncertain of how to respond. "But, don't know. The wheels popped out of nowhere. Come on, we'd better check it out." The Arkham guard spoke before exiting the vehicle to investigate the issue, with the other guard following closely behind while ensuring that Roman remained in the car in case he attempted to act out. Roman fell silent, his head throbbing the near-death experience as blood leaked from his forehead due to the violent motion of the vehicle. As he began to ponder, he heard the voices of the two guards, causing a commotion. "What the?" Before the guards even had a moment to reach for their weapons, they were taken down in a flurry of unexpected strikes, leaving them sprawled on the ground, completely unconscious. Roman was becoming worried. He wanted to know what the F was going on. Slowly getting up and ignoring the blood pouring down his face, Roman opened the back door of the vehicle and noticed that both guards were knocked out. What the hell? Roman didn't expect to see that, not that he was complaining. That meant he would have a chance to escape, but hold on. The guards were knocked out, meaning someone else was here with him. Roman felt a growing unease creeping in, stirring a nagging suspicion that something wasn't quite right. Before Roman could get a chance to escape, he heard footsteps, the footsteps becoming louder each second as Roman began to get anxious. Still, before he could get an opportunity to question who was there, his body was pushed to the ground as he felt a hand around his neck, almost choking to death. What the F dash? Roman's scream shattered the stillness, a raw expression of the urgency and intensity of the moment. A figure in a civilian-esque costume wore a black and gray jacket, an armored black bodysuit underneath, a red helmet underneath, and a hoodie that matched the same color. The most particular aspect of his appearance was the red bat symbol displayed across the black bodysuit, seemingly belonging to a specific bat family. Who are you? Are you with that demon bat? Black Mask insisted on answers, his piercing gaze demanding respect. No, if anything, quite the opposite. The red-masked vigilante responded coldly and proceeded to aim his gun at Roman, whose expression suddenly turned fearful. Tell something, was he the one who managed to capture your butt? Who was about to send you to Arkham? The man in the red mask questioned while Black Mask panicked, his gun ready. No. Roman struggled to find the words, a heavy silence hanging in the air as he wrestled with his thoughts. I.e. was another vigilante. He attempted to plead for his life, hoping this vigilante would act with reason. I see. In that case, I need you to send a message for me. The red-masked figure declared as Black Mask watched in dread. Give my regards to Batman, in the form of a corpse. Once those guards over there on the ground wake up, they will be the only ones to notice you because, let's face it, Sinios, you were always at the bottom of the barrel at Gotham. No one will miss you after tonight. The red-masked figure pointed his gun, preparing to end Black Mask's life. No, this couldn't be. Roman didn't want it to end like this. For once, Roman was pleading, begging for his life, as he did not want to die, not like this. Wait. You can't do this. Please. What do you want? Money. Women. Anything you want. Name it. With a desperate tone, Black Mask began to plead, secretly hoping this formidable vigilante would show him mercy. How about you go to hell? The sound of a gun was fired, and the bullet went through Roman's skull. His blood and brain matter were spilled, staining the concrete with his vital fluid. Roman Sonios, once feared as the notorious Black Mask, collapsed to the ground, life extinguished in an instant. The weight of his fallen legacy echoed through the shadows, leaving a chilling silence in his wake. Good riddance. Black Mask was no more. The figure in red stood by, gazing at the gangster's corpse with a look of disgust. In a way, he had done Gotham a service by eliminating him. After all, it is because of people like him that crime plagues the city in the first place. He was curious about something. If it wasn't Batman who sent him to the lockup, then who was it? Another one of his sidekicks? There was no way that could be true. After all, the crime lord had labeled him a vigilante. The way he presented himself speaks volumes and solidifies the truth of the matter. He was no Batman. If anything, it had to be none but a rookie on the field. Even so, it was interesting. It looks like Gotham had more supposed heroes than he initially anticipated. Red Hood took pride in overcoming the challenges and seeing it through to the end. He was set to reclaim the streets of Gotham, armed with the resolve to do it right this time. The city deserved a champion who wouldn't back down. This time, not even Batman would stand in the way. It would unfold just as he envisioned. He was determined to show all of Gotham what true justice really looks like in this fractured society. He's determined to get his hands dirty this time, without hesitation. And, hello everyone. Chapter 2 of Lost Justice is finally here. Special thanks to Marriage Alami, King 101, for beta reading this chapter. I could not have done it without their help, and the support means a lot. I bet you guys saw this coming, with Red Hood finally appearing in the picture. And yes, Black Mask is dead as a part of me wanted to keep him alive, but realistic, what could he do to Izuku at this point of the story? Nothing. Just like a lot of his adaptations, even in fanfiction, he gets screwed over just like in canon. Speaking of Red Hood, he will play a crucial role in the story. Same with Barbara and eventually Dee Grayson, who has yet to appear. Other characters like Barbara, Alfred, and, of course, the Bat himself have appeared as well. Batman is definitely going to be the conflict for Izuku when it comes to being a hero, especially since, unknowingly, Izuku has performed heroics on his turf. Considering how strict he is about it. Other members of the Justice League and other DC heroes will appear, but not for a while, as Izuku spends the first chapters in Gotham, making a new life for himself. Eventually, they will appear, but for now, it's a bit grounded. As for design and appearances, go for these characters. Red Hood's appearance is based on his Arkham Knight design, and his backstory and origin are based mainly on death in the Family Comics animated movie leading up to Under the Red Hood. Batman Bruce Wayne's appearance is more like the DCU, with some elements sprinkled from Arkham and other adaptations of his character. Barbara's appearance is based on the Killing Joke animated movie. And no, the Killing Joke has not happened yet in the story and definitely won't be adapted like the movie for obvious reasons. I plan to integrate multiple source materials from other DC universes, such as games, cartoons, and even live-action adaptations, rather than sticking to comics for this story to spice it up a bit. It is fanfiction after all, you can write it as you please. As I stated in the previous chapter, Izuku will not join the League or be involved with the Bat family anytime soon. He will be his independent hero since, again, Gotham is basically a test of his morals. Just wait until Izuku meets some of Batman's rogue galleries like Riddler, Scarecrow, or the Joker. Especially the Joker, who is gonna be another future conflict in the story, considering Killing Joke hasn't happened yet, but it will be a while until we see those characters in the story. Please leave a favorite, follow, and review this FIC. Of course, no flames, but constructive criticism is always welcome here. Feel free to PM me if you want to chat or ask for any future updates on my fics. Links for Discord servers I'm in. Code for Emerald Library, GG Library. Code for Eisennego, Can 7F3 Hz. Code for Yagami, RB4 Kane. Code for Berserker Gene, BGMI. In case you want to chat with me on there. Good servers if you're looking for a place for fanfiction. Enjoy these 5 updates from me. Check out the other fics that were updated today. I will be taking a small break from writing due to personal reasons involving family and education studies. I appreciate your support. Stay safe, stay awesome, and have a great day out there. Adios. And I don't own MHA or DC. Chapter 2. Finding My Way. It must have been just a few minutes. Though if he were to be honest with himself, it felt like hours had passed at this point instead. Izuku continued to walk through a busy street filled with pedestrians walking past him. Not too long ago, the green-haired vigilante embarked on a quest to find employment, motivated to change his circumstances. He scoured various establishments throughout the city, from bustling cafes to local shops, hopeful for a chance to prove himself. Unfortunately, his efforts were met with a barrage of rejections. Many employers turned him away, citing his status as a homeless youth wandering the streets, which made them hesitant to offer him a position. Others were influenced by his status as a foreigner, someone not originally from Gotham or even the United States, which added another layer of elitism and discrimination to their decision-making. Izuku also faced the obstacle of lacking any identification, a critical requirement that hindered his ability to secure even the most basic minimum wage job. This series of setbacks only deepened his resolve to overcome the societal barriers that stood in his way. Figures. Izuku wasn't surprised if he had to be honest with himself. He did encounter several good Samaritans who recommended various places where he could seek employment. After all, it couldn't have been that difficult. Expressing his thanks, Izuku bowed respectfully to the benevolent strangers and proceeded to explore the limited work opportunities available. However, before he could depart, the Good Samaritans cautioned him about the city's particular perils. Izuku remembers their cautions: be careful. Gotham isn't a safe place for a kid like you. The former UA student shook his head, fighting those thoughts away. After all, he wasn't afraid. In his journey he had faced numerous villains, each one more nefarious than the last monsters unworthy of coexisting with the innocent. He had witnessed the specter of death, staring it down in countless battles, yet he realized that none of those experiences had left him shaken. In truth, the terrifying encounters from his past paled in comparison to the emotional turmoil he faced from the people in his original world. Among those memories, none stood out quite like his tumultuous relationship with Katsuki Bakugo, or Kaken, as he affectionately called him. In their middle school days, Kaken often loomed over him like a storm cloud, his fierce demeanor striking fear into the hearts of his classmates, especially Izuku. Those moments of intimidation were suffocating for the green-haired teen, leaving scars deeper than any physical battle ever could. But as time went on, particularly during their shared experiences at UA High School, Izuku began to witness a transformation in Kaken. Ironically, he found himself smiling at those earlier memories, an indelible mark of growth. With perseverance and the realization of his potential, Kaken gradually became someone Izuku could count on, a friend capable of loyalty and bravery. This evolution came to fruition during the harrowing fight against All for One in the Paranormal Liberation War. At that moment, Kaken bravely saved Izuku's life. This act strengthened their bond and confirmed Izuku's belief that beneath Kaken's abrasive exterior lay a brighter, more compassionate soul, in his own way. Kaken would often scold him for being careless, revealing a caring side of himself for the most part. During the chaos, Izuku found solace in their connection, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this pivotal moment, one that signified not just survival but the power of friendship forged from understanding and respect. However, besides the occasional thugs and criminals out in the street, Izuku did hear of a few notable villains while roaming last night. Besides the man with the black mask from the previous night, there was another mob boss by the name of the Penguin. Penguin? What an odd name for a villain. Did he have any abilities or anything animalistic traits that belonged to a penguin? Was he an actual penguin? It wouldn't be the craziest thing that Izuku had seen before, knowing his principal was a bear or mouse. You know, that was one question that Izuku always wanted to know. But Izuku digresses. It wasn't solely the penguin that sprang to mind for Izuku. Other villains like the Riddler, akin to a living questionnaire, also appeared. Mr. Freeze, a villain who would wield an ice quirk or power if quirks were a thing in this world, bore a resemblance to Todoroki's quirk. Yet, the most notorious figure that haunted Izuku's thoughts, often dubbed Batman's other opposite, was the Joker. The Joker. He remembers that name. During his time at the library, he had read online that this person was dubbed the Clown Prince of Crime. This individual was responsible for the most tremendous upheaval in Batman's early career. A villain who had perpetrated atrocious crimes, including robbery, gang wars, arson, murder, and kidnapping, embodied all the traits of a true villain. Izuku had believed All for One to be the worst of the worst, yet it was astonishing to consider that there could be another equally malevolent who could meet those standards. Even though Shigaraki committed harmful deeds, part of him understood it wasn't entirely by choice, owing to his past. All for One, too, had an endgame goal and different beliefs about the quirk society, whereas this Joker character seemed to do it merely for amusement. Overall, Izuku understood that villains such as the Joker were extremely dangerous. Anyway, he knew that there was a mission to do for today. That was to find a job, mainly a temporary one, that would allow him to live on a decent wage. Noticing a sign, Izuku realized he stood in front of a small building, a Chinese restaurant of sorts, as he could see on the sign in English. Emerald Pagoda. That was a name Izuku wasn't familiar with. Deciding to stop wasting, he finally took action. As he entered the small restaurant and opened the door, a bell chimed, coinciding with his encounter with a man who seemed to be in his late 30s to early 40s. The man had black hair and was clad in an apron with casual clothes underneath his attire. "Hey!" The man spoke, gaining Izuku's attention. "Can I help you, young man?" "Yes." Izuku nodded. "I'm looking for a job here." "A job?" the man asked. "No offense, kid, but you don't look exactly the working type. Look a little young to be asking for a job," he commented on Izuku's appearance. "Yeah?" As if that's not a line he's heard a million times before. Izuku's been through enough of that nonsense in middle school, all because of his baby face. It's like he can't catch a break. "How old are you?" the man asked with suspicion in his voice. 16, Izuku answered simply. The man raised an eyebrow, puzzled by the green-haired teen's unexpected comment. After a moment, his curiosity took over, and he asked another question. Do you have any parents? Do you have a guardian you live with?" Izuku hesitated, uncertainty flashing in his eyes as the moment hung heavy around him. Just as doubt began to close in, a spark of inspiration ignited within him. He crafted a response, prepared to face whatever lay ahead. "No, sir. I live on my own," he shook his head. "Normally, I wouldn't hire teenagers in my establishment, especially since I'm running a business here." Izuku appeared downcast, his eyes giving it away, expecting to hear a negative answer from the man. Of course, what was he expecting anyway? He had no work experience, let alone in the food business, so how would that make him eligible for this kind of job? However, that wouldn't be the case here. "However, I'm looking for more help, especially since 2 of my employees quit, both of them DLVRY boys. Can't blame them since Gotham is notorious for ruining small businesses, mine included." Jien answered as Izuku stood silent in surprise. his eyes lightening up as he heard the words being spoken to him. So, tell you what, kid. If you can show me a good work initiative, I might consider hiring you full-time. He spoke, causing the green-haired teen to glimmer with hope. Really? So, I have the job? Izuku questioned. The man said, yep, that is, if you can last for the night. Most of the guys I hired in the past always quit on their first DLV. Not that I blame them, of course. Izuku only nodded in response. What's your name, kid? The restaurant owner inquired with a tone full of intrigue. Izuku. My name is Izuku Midoriya, he said calmly, with no reason for having to hide his name. Izuku? Huh, that's Japanese, isn't it? The man questioned with a curious tone as Izuku nodded, not before the man realized it in the tone he had used. Not that I don't mind, obviously, I just wasn't expecting to see many foreigners here. Not in Gotham of all places. Yeah, so he has heard. Gotham does have that infamous reputation that Izuku has heard of so much. Anyway, my name is Jen Chow, and we are hiring now. When can you start? The restaurant owner asked. I can start as soon as you need me, Izuku answered honestly. It's not like he had nothing better to do. Alright, then in that case, tomorrow, you can start. But not right away. I need to show you how all the details and deliveries work in this city. I need to iron all the details out for you. Jien informed the green-haired teen, nodding, understanding the policies and rules of the job. Thank you, sir. Izuku bowed politely. Wow, manners. I don't expect manners from this generation. Not that it's a bad thing, of course. If you can show me a good work initiative, I'll consider hiring you full-time. The restaurant owner clarified, further informing the green-haired teen. After the introductions, the green-haired inheritor of One for All took his leave, feeling fulfilled he had achieved what he came for. Alright, so that was step 2 complete. Now, all he needed to do was wait. He knew that he needed to wait until he could find an affordable place to live and understand how the world operates here. He particularly wanted to avoid sleeping in another abandoned building, risking encounters with Gotham's petty criminals or, even worse, the notorious villains that he had heard plague the city. And that was the moment Izuku had to be cautious. Nevertheless, he would be prepared for that scenario. Fear was not an option for him when his survival was at stake. He was poised to battle, and he would no longer live in peril, especially in his presence. With his hands clenched in determination, he realized he was utterly alone, unable to rely on All Might or his loved ones. Their absence signified it was time for Izuku to embrace his path of heroism fully. He wasn't afraid this time. This world resembled his own, yet it was more unpredictable than he could confidently articulate. At this moment, survival was his paramount concern, and Izuku understood that he must continue to advance to demonstrate his presence to the world. For All Might, for his classmates, for his mother, for everyone who was counting on him. Whatever it takes. Well, time to get going. Izuku thought to himself. Well, it had been a while since he set foot in Gotham. As he continued to walk into the city, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. It was as if time had stood still since he last walked its familiar streets. A man with neatly combed black hair and blue eyes wore a brown jacket and black jeans. His face was chiseled with a strong jawline, appearing like some kind of playboy at best. But truthfully, no, he was far from a playboy. He grew up in the circus, after all. So that should tell you something. D. Grayson continued to walk through the streets of Gotham City, a trip to visit a specific billionaire/caped crusader living in a manor. Stepping back into Gotham stirred a strange nostalgia within him. As a former Robin, he had left his mark on these gritty streets, each corner echoing memories of triumphs and failures. He always knew that one day he would redefine himself beyond Batman's shadow. As he walked through the city, he noticed the changes: towering skyscrapers, fallen landmarks, and new threats emerging. He wondered how Bruce was managing it all. Their lack of contact weighed on him, and he hoped that Batman was holding firm, especially with his responsibilities in the Justice League. These streets whispered stories, igniting a longing in him to reclaim his purpose. Yet, the pull of Gotham's past reminded him of his roots and the legacy he still carried. Tim and Barbara were on his mind, each in their own way. Tim had embraced the role of Robin a few years back, and he genuinely hoped this time would be a success for him. But Barbara? That was a different tale altogether. It had been ages since they last crossed paths, and he couldn't shake the feeling that things were tangled between them. He didn't hold any resentment, he understood her struggles. All he wanted was to bridge the gap and reconnect as friends, to find a way back to the easy camaraderie they once shared. As Dee walked on, he observed a scene unfolding in the distance. A little girl playing ball with her friends, their laughter and gestures indicating their enjoyment. A smile crossed Dee's face at this display of innocence, but it quickly faded when he saw the ball slip from the girl's hands. She chased after it into the street, and as she reached for the ball, the sound of an approaching car filled the air. Frozen in the headlights, the girl stood petrified while the urgent honking of the car's horn alerted Dee to the danger as he noticed the traffic light turning red. Dee realized immediate action was required. Harnessing his former strength, the Bloodhaven Vigilante sprinted without pause, aware that life depended on him right then. Swiftly scooping the girl into his arms, he readied himself to leap. However, he required additional time and momentum, knowing the car was quickly coming their way. "Sheet, I'm not gonna make it." Dee, in a frenzy of thought, held the girl firmly, positioning his body as a shield to protect her from the impending impact. In that heart-stopping moment, the former boy wonder experienced a surge of clarity. His sole focus rested on the innocent girl securely held in his arms as her life hung in the balance, and he knew he'd rather face the oncoming car himself than let her perish. In that critical moment, he made the split-second decision to push her onto the sidewalk to ensure her safety, and Dee's thoughts sharpened into focus. The little girl in his arms was his priority, her survival depended on his next move. He would not allow her life to be snuffed out by the oncoming car. Without hesitation, he made a bold decision to throw her to safety on the sidewalk away from the road, fully aware that he was ready to sacrifice himself for her. If it meant saving her, then so be it, he would face his fate head-on. The former boy wonder would embrace it, knowing that his sacrifice could save her bright, young life. Before he could throw the girl to keep her from harm's way, lost in his contemplation, an intrusive voice shattered the former boy wonder's thoughts. "Look out!" A voice from the unknown yelled as Dee's arm was abruptly grabbed, pulling him out of the way as the former boy wonder was shocked all of a sudden. What? Izuku proceeded along the sidewalk, skillfully maneuvering through the bustling crowd. The burden of his circumstances weighed upon him with the same intensity as the rigorous training he had endured to inherit All Might's quirk. With each step, he reminded himself that finding a place to sleep for the night was his immediate priority, just until he could secure a job and stabilize his situation. After that, he could finally afford a proper place to rest and regroup. As he approached the intersection, the street lights switched to red, illuminating the crosswalk ahead with a sense of urgency. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to two figures standing in the middle of the street, seemingly oblivious to the oncoming car barreling toward them. Tension surged through him. "Sheet," he thought, his heart racing as he recognized the peril of the situation. Though he wasn't always the fastest thinker in high-stress moments, the familiar tingle of his danger sense pulsed at the back of his mind, compelling him to act. Without a second thought, he dashed forward, determined to intervene before it was too late. The crowd around him blurred into the background as his focus narrowed onto the figures, adrenaline fueling his every move. He knew he had to reach them in time. He sprinted down the street, his heart pounding with adrenaline as he pushed himself to run faster than ever before. In a split second, Izuku swooped in like a whirlwind, his instincts honed by countless battles guiding him. With a firm yet gentle grip, he snatched the man carrying the little girl off his feet, swiftly securing her small frame against his chest. The familiar hum of danger sense thrummed through him, heightening his awareness of everything around him as the inheritor of One for All. Cradling the girl safely in his arms, Izuku tapped into a surge of energy with a quick burst of FA gene, propelling himself forward. He felt the exhilaration of speed rush through him as he redirected his course toward the next street, each stride pouring all of his focus into keeping the child safe. They raced through the disorder, the girl's wide eyes reflecting both fear and trust, and Izuku's determination surged. In that moment, she was his priority, and he was resolute in ensuring her safety above all else. At that moment, the girl nestled in the other man's embrace was safe, and Izuku felt a wave of relief wash over. Shit, he should have been more vigilant. Though he was grateful that both the man and the little girl were unharmed, a deep anxiety gnawed at him. He couldn't afford to draw any more unwanted attention to himself. It was crucial to keep things low-key. Just as Izuku steeled himself to use his training and leap out of sight, another voice sliced through his thoughts, pulling him back into the present. "Molly! Mommy!" the little girl yelled to her mother as she held her child, happy that she was all right. Izuku smiled in return, happy to see the girl reunited with her mother. "Thank you," the mother said kindly. As Izuku flashed a final, radiant smile, he continued on his path, unaware of what lay ahead. Suddenly, he found himself standing toe-to-toe with the very man who had selflessly intervened for him moments before, who was standing in front of him. The stranger, who previously clutched the little girl protectively in his arms, locked eyes with Izuku, creating a brief but powerful connection that hinted at shared struggles and unspoken gratitude. Izuku, being himself, decided to ask a simple question. "Are you okay? Are you okay?" the mysterious boy asked as he blinked in confusion. The former boy wonder's gaze sharpened as he studied the person who had rescued him. A youth, seemingly around or close to his age, was clad in a gray and black hoodie paired with gray sweatpants, giving off an almost homeless vibe. However, what stood out most was his hair, those curls of an unusual green hue. Dee hesitated to pass judgment. Green hair was something he'd only seen on a certain chaos-loving clown. Yet, he reminded himself not to make assumptions. "Yeah, I'm fine," said, brushing himself the dust. "Should have been quicker on my feet," he joked. "Yeah, I'm glad to see nothing bad happen to you or that girl." The boy commented with concern as Dee couldn't help but let out a small chuckle. "Yeah, that's good," Dee said positively. "Well, good to see that there are decent people left in Gotham." Was glad that it was true. The voice of the green-haired teen interrupted Dee's thoughts. "Well, I should get going. Sorry to bother you. I hope you take care of yourself," the boy said meaningfully as he rose to his feet, ready to depart, now assured of their well-being. "Hey, wait," stopped the boy in his tracks. "What's your name, by the way?" he questioned curiously. "Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. And you are?" The boy, now Izuku, asked politely of the dark-haired man. D-. The name's D. Grayson. He introduced himself, smiling in the process. He shook hands with the green-haired teen, who had a slight smile on his face. "Nice to meet you, Grayson-san. You seem like a good person." Izuku began to assume kindly. "Good person? Well, isn't that the case of the pot calling the kettle black?" Had barely gotten to know the young man, yet he turned out to be one of the most courteous individuals he'd encountered in Gotham City, of all places an admittedly unexpected revelation. Dee chuckled a bit before responding. "In a way, I could say the same thing about you. However, I do have a question for you." Dee inquired as the now-named boy, Izuku, looked in curiosity. "Dee, I hoped it wouldn't be too much of a personal question. You're not from around here, are you?" the former boy wonder speculated. Izuku scratched his head out of old habits. "Yeah, I moved here from Japan a while ago to here. Been living in Gotham since then." "Japan?" That immediately captured Dee's interest. As he reflected on it, memories of a distant adventure surged forth, his trip to Japan with the Teen Titans years ago, a time that had brought him closer to Starfire. The vibrant sights and sounds of the bustling streets still echoed in his mind, but so did the tumultuous challenges they faced. During that trip, Dee found himself in a nightmare scenario, wrongly accused of a murder he didn't commit. With the police hot on his trail and his teammates facing suspicion, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Despite the chaos, they managed to unite, unraveling the intricate web spun by Daizo, an ex-commander turned villain. Daizo was the cunning mastermind behind Brushigun's devious scheme, and with teamwork and determination, they ultimately exposed his true intentions and thwarted his plans before more damage could be done. Yet, a pang of nostalgia tugged at him as he thought of his fellow Titans, Cyborg's tech expertise, Beast Boy's playful antics, Raven's enigmatic wisdom, and Starfire's unwavering spirit. It had been too long since they'd connected. He often wondered how Starfire was faring after his departure to Bloodhaven, especially with the weight of becoming Nightwing resting on his shoulders. The bond they'd shared had been remarkable, and he couldn't help but feel a lingering curiosity about how her life had unfolded since that fateful trip. Japan? Interesting. It's a great place to visit. I even went to Japan for a few years with a couple of friends. Beautiful country, I'll say that. Your English is pretty fluent too, D happily stated with a thumbs up. Thank you. Izuku bowed in return. U waved his hands in return. Hey, you don't need to do that here. You already have my respect. Besides, I should be the one thanking you for what you did for me and that girl. No problem. It's what heroes do. Izuku declared with pride as noticed the tone and expression of the green-haired teenager. Such a response took aback D-, yet he wasn't opposed to it. To an extent, it seemed appropriate. Heroes, huh? That's one way to put it. Concurred with the green-haired teenager. A new question sparked in his thoughts. Do you have a favorite? He inquired with a hint of innocence. Not that I can remember. There's a lot that I can think of, Izuku said honestly. D laughed. I bet. It's cool. Most people probably would have said someone like Batman or Superman as good examples, he said, earning some interest from Izuku, who looked intrigued by those mentions of the heroes. Especially since said one of them was a big inspiration to D-, of course. Yeah, I know what you mean, Grayson-san, but to be honest, I already a favorite hero. You've never heard of him, but he's the one who helped me achieve my dreams a long time ago. Someone told me that it was never too late to achieve it in the first place. Izuku said proudly. D could relate to that. He was in a similar boat. D nodded before giving out his thoughts. I can respect that. I also have someone who did the same for me. You could say he was like father figure of sorts for me. You could say that he's my inspiration as well. Even if said inspiration can be a grumpy pain in the butt sometimes. Even D acknowledged that, without his mentor, he would never have grown into a better person. A faint smile appeared on his face as he recalled the fond memories of his time with Bruce before departing for Jump City and ultimately embracing his role as a full-time vigilante in Bloodhaven. I'm glad to hear that, Grayson-san. Having one's support always makes it worthwhile, especially since if they believe in you, then you should go for it. Believe me. I know. Yeah, that's true. It's what a lot, if not everyone, needs in their life. Trailed off as Izuku nodded, agreeing with the former boy wonder. A good role model is something that everyone needs as a way to look at the positives in life. Well, excuse me, Grayson-san. I don't want to be rude, but I should get going somewhere. Somewhere to rest for the night. Izuku spoke, not wanting to intrude on the former boy wonder's time. D nodded, understanding completely. Oh, I got you. I'm sorry to ask this of you, and I hope this is not personal, but do you have a place to sleep for the night? Izuku stood silent, unaware of what to say, as even D caught onto his posture. You don't, do you? The former boy wonder assumed with a solemn expression. Well, no. I mean, I usually stay at a shelter. Or whatever I can find for the night. D said for a few seconds before responding. I see. He finally spoke as the vigilante of Bloodhaven took out a small paper that appeared like a card, of all things. Here, take this card. D offered to the green-haired teenager, who looked in confusion. What is this? Izuku questioned. It's a homeless shelter where you can stay for the night. It has a lot of room and is pretty advanced for most shelters here. D informed the homeless green-haired teen. On the paper, it had an address to a shelter for people without housing. The most intriguing thing about it was under the name Wayne, meaning D knew his connection somewhere. The former boy wonder saw the eyes light up on Izuku, also seeming grateful about it. Thank you, Grayson-san, but I have to ask, why are you helping me on this? Izuku asked, wondering the reason why. Because of what you did earlier. Not a lot of people in Gotham would risk their lives for a stranger. From our first meeting, I saw you as a good person. Someone's willing to do the right thing, no matter the cost. D said sincerely. And I respect that gratefully. Thank you, Grayson-san. I won't forget this favor. Izuku promised. I know you won't. D ensured. Well, it was nice meeting you, Izuku. I need to get to my father's house. If we do see each other again, feel free to give me a reach, and I can return the favor to you whatever you need. Thank you, Grayson-san, for the support. Take care, kid, and good luck in Gotham. D happily said, bidding farewell. With a quick nod, Izuku slipped the trim card into his pocket, feeling a strange mix of excitement and anticipation. He waved goodbye to the former boy wonder, convinced that this meeting was just the beginning of an unexpected journey ahead. As D walked to his next destination, a ringtone played from his pocket, signaling him that someone was calling him. He sighed as he could already tell who it was. Grabbing his phone from his left pocket, D answered. Hello. D-. It's been a while. A familiar voice called out to the former boy wonder. D smiled. That it has. What's up, Bruce? Change of plans. I know you said you were stopping by the manor, but I need you to meet me, Tim, and Barbara at the Bat Cave. Bruce informed on the other line. D became confused, wondering what changed. But something happened, the vigilante of Bloodhaven questioned. I'll explain it when you get here. Contact me when you arrive. Bruce hung up as D sighed, putting his phone back in his pocket. Well, glad to see you haven't changed at all, Bruce. D thought to himself with nostalgia, chuckling in the process. Yep, he had returned home once again. Meanwhile, in another part of Gotham, the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain of the Batcave. As twilight settled in, the vibrant colors of the sky gave way to the deep blues and purples of night, while the moon ascended, radiating a silvery glow that illuminated the cavern's dark corners. It was the perfect moment for a vigilante's work when darkness cloaked the city and opportunities awaited. Before he could step into Gotham's bustling night, however, Batman needed to address a few pressing matters. He stood resolute at the heart of the Batcave, surrounded by the high-tech gadgets and vehicles that defined his relentless pursuit of justice. Beside him was a young man, likely one of his trusted sidekicks. Tim Drake, with his black hair closely cropped into a buzz cut, held a determined expression in his striking green eyes, a stark contrast to the black mask that concealed his identity. Clad in a sleek red suit that hugged his athletic frame. The suit's design featured bare forearms that hinted at his agility and strength. A small black cape draped over his shoulders, fluttering slightly with the movements of the cavern's cooling air, and a hood framed his face, adding an air of mystery. The bold letter R emblazoned on his chest spoke to his role as Robin, the boy wonder, an integral part of Gotham's fight against crime of darkness. Tim took a breath, knowing this night would likely test their mettle, both as partners and as guardians of the city. He could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on him, an unyielding sense of purpose as he prepared to follow Batman into the shadows once more. When are D and Barbara getting here? Tim asked his mentor. They should be here soon, Batman replied. Tim nodded thoughtfully, his mind turning to a suspicion. He was certain that Bruce was concealing something from him about what had transpired the previous night. So, you want to tell me what's the news here? Tim questioned the Dark Knight, who continued to type on his back computer. It's about what happened last night, Tim. The vigilante who apprehended Black Mask and his men in Gotham Bank. Batman answered Tim without facing him. Tim nodded. Oh yeah, I heard about him. Supposedly he's on our side. That can't be the case. There's more to this vigilante than we already know, and that's what I don't like about this. Well, glad to see you're still active. Bruce. A dark-haired young man dressed in a blue and black skin-tight suit, a black eye mask covering his identity, and two eskrima sticks sticking from behind his back. Nightwing, it's been a while, Bruce said, walking over to where the former Robin was, shaking his hand to greet him. You haven't changed a bit, Batman. D joked. Funny, I could see the same thing about you, Nightwing. A feminine voice called out to the Bloodhaven vigilante. A young woman appeared in the Batcave, wearing a black suit with bright yellow accents, courtesy of the utility belt around her torso, alongside a leg pouch and the bright yellow symbol on her chest. A mask resembling a bat was covering her identity, doing its job right. Batgirl, miss you too, said with a smile. I bet you did. Everyone missed you, Barbara said, walking over to where Dee was, giving him a hug which he returned as well. Heh, didn't think you were coming today, Tim let out jokingly. Dee chuckled in response. Yeah, well, I got time to kill now that Bloodhaven isn't too hectic on crime from over there. Tim was annoyed by that statement. Hey, at least you get to branch out. I'm still stuck in Gotham, patrolling and detaining the same villains like always. He complained, causing the Vigilante of Bloodhaven to shrug both of his arms. A few seconds passed and Tim and Dee began to laugh for old time's sake. All right, so what was the emergency you called us here for? Dee questioned. It's about what happened last night. Batman clarifies. Gotham has a new vigilante. The vigilante? What about him? Barbara questioned. Last night, Black Mask was apprehended by him, eventually being taken into custody by your father. Afterward, 2 guards began to escort him to Arkham Asylum in a vehicle, but on the way, both of the guards were stopped and knocked out due to someone intervening. With a heavy heart and a somber tone, Batman revealed the grim truth to the rest of the Bat family, casting a shadow over their usual camaraderie. Black Mask was stopped again. Before he was killed. The air crackled with tension as the group stood frozen in disbelief, the weight of the startling news hanging heavily in the room. Everyone was caught off guard, everyone, that is, except for Batman, who remained deep in contemplation within the confines of the Batcave. Black Mask's dead? Questioned, wondering how the hell did that happen. But how? He further asked. He was shot in the head by an assailant. The question is, no one knows who it is. Batman answered straight to the point. Tim became a little skeptical about it. That can't be. Do you think that the vigilante had something to do with it? He assumed. After all, how many rogue vigilantes did exist in Gotham freaking City anyway? Barbara, however, didn't buy it at all. No, it can't be possible. Why would the vigilante detain Black Mask only for him to murder the guy later at night? He could have just done it in the bank. She rested her chin on her hand, and a spark of curiosity ignited within her. Thoughts raced through her mind as she endeavored to unravel the mystery before her. Unless do you guys think it was someone else? They assumed, adding in his thoughts. Batman turned his attention to face Nightwing. That has to be the case. Black Mask died from a gunshot, while the vigilante had no signs of using weapons. If anything, it has traits that belong to a metahuman, he reckoned, knowing metahumans were common in Gotham City. This wasn't the first time, of course. Metahuman? So what? This guy has powers all of a sudden. What's he even doing in Gotham, anyway? Metropolis sounds like a better place for this guy. Tim let out as he couldn't believe that they were dealing with another metahuman situation. Maybe he's heard how bad a place Gotham can be. He assumed. Maybe Superman kicked him out of his city to let him know that it's his city, not this metahuman, he continued with his theories. That did bring up an interesting topic. Speaking of which, Bruce, did you contact Supes on this news? Tim asked. Batman shook his head. Not yet. I'm not sure if Clark even knows who this vigilante is. That is a possibility. After all, it is weird that a metahuman is in Gotham, of all places. You figured that he would go to Metropolis or Central City. Barbara spoke out. Batman understood that the situation was far more complex. Therefore, it was necessary to conduct a thorough search, as this peculiar vigilante could appear anywhere. Even so, we can't let our guard down. We need to be on patrol further and be on the lookout for him, in case he is a threat to Gotham or not. Does this guy even have a name? Asked as he pondered the true identity of the elusive vigilante. No one knows who he is, Batman answered vaguely. Tim eagerly stepped into the conversation, sharing his insights and sparking lively discussion. What if he isn't? Are you going to recruit this guy? Batman lingered in silence for a moment, the weight of the night pressing down on him, before finally breaking his stillness to voice his thoughts. Maybe, if he isn't a threat to others, then I won't be afraid to stop him for good. Meeting adjourned. Get the Batmobile prepared, let's make our way into the night. The Bat family shared resolute glances, the tension in the air crackling with anticipation as they steeled themselves for the trials that awaited them. Each member felt the gravity of the moment, united in purpose and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Well, it was getting late. Izuku felt the weight of urgency pressing down on him. Time was slipping away faster than he could grasp. Having located the address a few miles from the city, the inheritor of One for All realized he was pretty close. On this occasion, he might consider himself fortunate. After all, how many people could offer assistance in his journey from point A to point B? At this moment, Izuku couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude. As the former UA student stood on the cracked pavement, he mentally prepared himself for the wait that lay ahead. His gaze drifted up to the imposing building before him, its weathered facade bearing the marks of time, a stark reminder of the challenges faced by those within its walls. A subtle breeze ruffled the small card clutched in his right hand, and he glanced down, double-checking the address. Confirmation flickered in his mind. This was indeed the right place. Before him stretched a long line of individuals, each with stories etched in the lines of their faces, a diverse group, yet united by their shared hardships. They stood patiently, some shivering in the cool air, while others engaged in quiet conversations, their voices barely rising above the sound of the city. He was surprised to find a homeless shelter exuding such class. Upon entering the shelter and waiting for almost 30 minutes, he reached the front of the line. A middle-aged woman with short black hair welcomed him. "Welcome to Wayne's Shelter for the Homeless. May I have your name, please?" Izuku coughs his hand into his throat before introducing himself. "Yes, Izuku Midoriya." The woman jotted down the green-haired teenager's name on the clipboard. "All right, Mr. Midoriya, you're in luck. We have a bed available for you. Meanwhile, there's some soup in the cafeteria that will be waiting for you for the next 2 days, should you head there." Izuku nodded. "Thank you," he said politely. As the green-haired teen made his way to the cafeteria, he observed the large crowd. The young vigilante recognized that poverty was a severe issue in Gotham. Although Izuku had encountered impoverished civilians in his hometown, the scale here was something he had never realized was so dire. He had underestimated the severity of poverty in Gotham. Still, the crime rate here was undeniably worse than in his old hometown and even more alarming than the city he had lived in before waking up in this place. Nevertheless, the young vigilante understood that he had to adapt to this harsh reality before he could reclaim the mantle of a hero once more. He would need to wait until the right moment arrived. Holding a tray with hot soup, Izuku settled at an empty table and started sipping. He wouldn't lie, he deeply missed his mother's cooking. Not that the soup was terrible, it was pretty satisfactory, but at that moment, nothing could surpass the taste of his mom's homemade meals. Especially if it was his mother's katsudon. As Izuku continued to eat his hot soup, a nearby voice caught his attention. "Hey, mind if I take a seat here?" A young man slightly older than Izuku stood holding a tray with a steaming bowl of soup. He was clad in a black shirt and pants, draped with a brown coat over his shoulders. His hair was black, marked by a white streak at the front, and he had a firm jawline. His eyes were a vivid green, so intense that they rivaled Izuku's own. "So, could I sit here, or do you want to take a picture to make it last longer?" the young man lightly joked. Izuku blinked for a few seconds before finally responding. "Oh, sorry. Yes, you may," the former hero in training offered politely. The young man with dark hair nodded in relief. "Fantastic. Makes my day a whole lot easier." "Good to hear," Izuku said in response. Izuku sat quietly, savoring his soup while stealing glances at the young man across the table, who cautiously took a few sips of his bowl. The atmosphere was charged with an unspoken tension. The young vigilante couldn't help but feel a bit awkward in this unfamiliar situation. Sharing a meal with a stranger wasn't precisely what he had planned. It wasn't that he had anything against this guy. There was an unusual vibe that made the whole experience feel uneasy, stirring his curiosity about who this person was. "So, kid, is this your first time in Gotham City?" the young man asked curiously as Izuku blinked in reflex. Sorta. I'm kinda here for a trip," Izuku said with a shrug. And by the trip, he meant being dropped into a whole new world where quirks didn't exist and where crime was a problem everywhere, even more than in his original world. which was a little baffling to the inheritor of One for All if he had to be honest on this occasion. The young man furrowed his brow, a hint of confusion flickering in his eyes as he processed Izuku's words. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet perplexed by the unexpected revelation. Trip? To Gotham, of all places? No offense, kid, but Gotham City isn't exactly a good place for a vacation. Not with crazy psychos and costumed weirdos running around here. He spoke with a morbid expression on his face. Yeah, like Izuku wasn't aware of the crimes. One of the first things he heard upon waking up in this city was the alarming crime rate, and he was fully aware of what that meant. Izuku answered, I'm aware, but I wasn't here by choice, if that makes any sense. I don't have anywhere else to go. Huh, I see. With a tousled mane of raven-black hair framing his face, the man spoke, his tone laced with a blend of skepticism and curiosity. What about your parents? Any family in Gotham? He continued to ask. No, it's just me alone. I don't have any family. Izuku answered, at least not within this world. The dark-haired man, with a solemn expression, had already begun to regret posing his question. Sheet, sorry to hear about that, kid. If I knew, I wouldn't have asked in the first place. Izuku gave a firm shake of his head, a reassuring smile on his face as he conveyed that it was no trouble at all. It's okay. You didn't know. I have grown used to being alone. Still, it wasn't my business to ask. After all, I know what it's like to be alone, the older teen said. Izuku's curiosity was piqued as he contemplated the raven-haired man's enigmatic words. He found himself captivated, recognizing that the man was in a situation strikingly parallel to his own. Did he know what he was talking about? You do? Izuku questioned. Yeah, let's just say a lot has changed over the years since I stepped into this DMN city. I thought everything would go decent from here, but it's not that easy. Not without paying the price yourself. The young man continued with his mini-lecture, knowing he had his fair share of past struggles. By the way, I never got your name, kid. Izuku. My name is Izuku Midoriya. What's your name? Izuku inquired. Jason. The name's Jason Todd. The man introduced himself in a melancholy tone. Izuku smiled. Nice to meet you, Todd-san. Don't need to use honorifics, kid. Just call me Jason, okay? The raven-haired man clarified. Okay, Jason-san, Izuku said, a bit awkward as Jason sighed. Close enough. Jason let out a light sigh, realizing what the time was. Well, it's getting late. Gotham is usually hectic around these times. You might want to stay in for the night. He warned lightly. Izuku didn't need to be told that twice. Right. Izuku nodded. Like Izuku said before, he was aware of the kind of place Gotham was, especially at night. After the duo had concluded their meal of soup, they realized that night had fallen. Been good talking to you, kid. Better get some sleep since tomorrow's going to be a long day for every resident of Gotham. Jason remarked, fully aware that the night was just beginning. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Jason-san. I hope you have a good night. Izuku bid a good night. Jason nodded, bidding the same. Same here, kid. You take care of yourself. Izuku bid Jason another good night, then picked up his tray and placed it on a counter with other empty trays. With that, the green-haired teenager exited the cafeteria and headed towards his room. What do you know? Guess everyone in Gotham wasn't a bad person, after all. Izuku opened the door and closed it behind him, casting a swift glance around his room. It was furnished with the essentials: a comfortable bed, a night lamp, a window offering a view of the city's nocturnal skyline, and a shower in the bathroom, completing the room's amenities. It's a start, at least. Izuku expressed lightly. Dressed in the same attire as before, sans the hoodie and shoes, Izuku reflected on recent events. He was hesitant to tempt fate, but thus far, he had encountered no significant misfortunes. Aside from a bank robbery and some wary glances from locals due to his distinctive hair and unassuming appearance, his experience had been largely untroubled. He had encountered several kind civilians who had offered assistance and cautioned him about the perils of Gotham. This world was somewhat peculiar yet not entirely dissimilar to his own. The technology was almost identical to that in his world, albeit with a few quirks removed and some downgrades in mobile devices. In the end, it didn't matter. Izuku was ready to alter his destiny. He was reluctant to acknowledge it, but he doubted his survival in the upcoming months within this forsaken city. Yet, that was irrelevant to him. He was determined to persevere for his loved ones and to continue the struggle for all those relying on him. After all, to help others, you need to take care of yourself first. I'm here for a reason, after all. I just hope it's for a good reason. Whatever it is, I won't give up, not without trying. Izuku thought to himself as he felt his eyelids getting heavier each second, the more he continued to think. Hold your head up high and plunge forward. Izuku thought one last time before drifting to sleep. Tomorrow would be a new day for the present inheritor of One for All. Things would never be the same after this. Perched on the edge of a skyscraper, a mysterious figure in a crimson hood meticulously plotted a special surprise for the city's underworld. It's one of the reasons that this city is infamous in the first place. No more being the nice guy. Red Hood drew his gun, methodically loading it while selecting his next target. In Gotham, a city rife with crime, finding a mark was hardly a challenge. The streets were teeming with gang members and those entangled in the narcotics trade. Gotham City would not be itself without its characteristic chaos, so it came as no surprise to him. The question was how long it would take him to finish the job for tonight. Countless options spread before him, yet none of them genuinely mattered. He knew this would take time. The night stretched ahead like an endless canvas. Choosing was akin to picking a singular bloom from a vibrant garden, knowing full well that it would soon wilt in his grasp. How many innocent people must die because a certain costumed vigilante was too afraid to butcher them? How many families will face the heart-wrenching consequences of gang violence and the unpredictable actions of those who thrive on chaos? No more. It needed to be stopped for once. He would show them all his true justice. Take it with a grain of salt, that was his logic. Gotham has a fresh face lurking in the shadows, a new vigilante who sends chills down the spines of its seasoned criminals. But this time, the streets are silent. No escapees are left to tell the tale of their terrifying encounters. This successor, unlike his former predecessor, isn't afraid to eliminate them all without getting his hands dirty. Well, let's get started. Red Hood remarked, leaping from the building and vanishing into the night, intent on teaching Gotham the true meaning of fear. And, hello, everyone. Special thanks go to Marriage Alumni, King 101, for beta reading this chapter. Couldn't have done this without their help. Things are getting better for Izuku as he unintentionally runs into not one but two figures with a previous legacy in Gotham. The kid has a good track record of meeting heroes by chance, starting with All Might. The next chapter will focus more on Izuku's part-time job, with him reacting to how Gotham works, since let's be real, a majority of Gotham's villains, when committing crimes, make all for one pale in comparison due to being more heinous for many reasons. Other heroes, like a few members of the JL, will appear soon in future chapters, but for now, everything will be somewhat self-contained in Gotham. Don't worry, eventually, we'll see Izuku in other locations in the DC universe, like Metropolis, as a good example. Please leave a review, favorite, and follow. No flames, but constructive criticism is always welcome. Of course, if you're a fan of both MHA and Marvel, expect an update on a hero among Avengers soon. Hope the characters, such as Dick Grayson and the rest of the Bat family, were well written in the story so far for you guys and not too OC. Since this is my first time writing a DC story and knowing DC, there's a lot of inconsistencies regarding on how they're written and act in situations. The highlight in this chapter was definitely Izuku meeting D. Nightwing, as both are good, wholesome young men who want to do the right thing, just to be a hero for others. Though that ideology is gonna clash when Izuku meets Jason the next time, only for obvious reasons, so looking forward to writing it very soon. Hope you guys enjoy this chapter, and feel free to PM me if you want to chat with me or ask for updates on any FIC I've got planned in the future. Links for Discord servers I'm currently in. Code for Emerald Library, GG Library. Code for Berserker Gene, BGMI. Great fanfiction servers are available if you ever feel like chatting or if you want an easier way to catch up on future updates. Stay safe, stay awesome, and catch you in the next update. Adios. And I don't own MHA or DC. Warning: this chapter contains strong language, mild blood, and gore. Reader's discretion is advised. Chapter 3. First Job. In Gotham City. The sun was beginning to rise over the city of Gotham. It marked the start of a new day, but unfortunately, it came with more challenges and burdens to bear at the moment. On the bright side, Izuku got a good night's sleep compared to the last night he'd had. He yawned as he began to stretch his arms, bones mildly cracking in his body. Boy, that was refreshing. It felt as if the universe had, for once, decided to sprinkle a bit of kindness his way. Izuku glanced out the window, where the brilliance of the morning sun poured through, casting a warm glow across his room. The vibrant light signaled that a new day had dawned, and he couldn't help but smile at the sight. After the previous night of tossing and turning, he finally managed to get some proper sleep, leaving him feeling rejuvenated and hopeful. The comfort of those deep, uninterrupted hours wrapped around him like a soft blanket. Still, he knew that he couldn't linger in the serenity of this moment for long. Responsibilities awaited him, and it was time to embrace the day ahead. Izuku cast a lingering glance toward the bathroom, the cramped space reflecting the uncertain days behind him. With a heavy sigh, he gradually rose from his unmade bed, each movement heavy with the weight of his thoughts. He walked slowly across the cold wooden floor, removing his worn and tattered clothing as if they were remnants of the struggles that had plagued him. A shower would help wake him up. God knows he needs one to stay alert for the rest of the day, a reminder of his time as the former quirkless student who used to live in the dorms back when UA had become a haven against villain threats. The memory jolted the green-haired teen awake, heightening his awareness of potential dangers looming in the country. Yeah, a shower is just what he needs. Drawing back the shower curtain, he turned the faucet, savoring the soothing sound of water splashing against the porcelain tub. The warm cascade enveloped him in a comforting embrace, a stark contrast to the cold anxiety that had gripped his chest from the previous nights. He had a feeling that Gotham would be chilly, but it still wasn't as bad as the usual weather in the winter. As the water streamed down his emerald hair, Izuku allowed the warmth to wash away the burden of the past few days. He closed his eyes, allowing the soothing spray to distract him from the chaos that haunted his mind. He had come to terms with it. He was in a different world, knowing he'd never see his loved ones again. Though the green-haired vigilante felt the weight of despair, he knew he couldn't give up, not without giving it his all. This was a new beginning for him, and he, alone, would face it, no matter how difficult it would be. Once he finished showering, Izuku stepped out, steam rising around him and blurring the mirror. He reached for the towel, patting his hair dry, as he caught sight of his crumpled and lifeless clothes lying out on the bed where he had sought refuge from the world. He felt a pang of nostalgia for the innocence of his earlier days, which seemed irretrievably lost. Hurriedly grabbing his clothes, Izuku knew he couldn't waste a second. In just a few minutes, he was dressed: pants, a shirt, a hoodie over it, and, of course, his trusty red sneakers. Fully ready, the former UA student prepared himself to face his first day on the job. He pulled on his gray hoodie, its faded green shade echoing his hair, and laced up his worn red sneakers, the familiar routine bringing a small sense of comfort. Dressed and ready, Izuku surveyed the room one last time, his heart heavy with the reality that he had only one more day to seek solace in this space. The uncertainty of his future weighed on him like a dark cloud. What would happen if he couldn't get the job? Where would he go? Those thoughts knotted tightly in his gut, but even in the depths of his worry, determination flickered within him like a candle in the dark. He couldn't afford to surrender to despair. Giving up would mean abandoning everything he had fought for. A sense of longing gripped him as he thought of the vestiges, especially Nana-san and Yoji-san. The other vestiges, along with them, were role models who had been his compass in times of doubt and confusion. Their absence was a big reminder of the journey he walked alone. However, he knew that their wisdom still echoed within him, urging him to persevere. Taking a deep breath, Izuku released the tension that had been clenching his jaw. Though the complexity of his situation felt overwhelming, a spark of hope ignited within him. He remembered how far he had come, the battles he had fought, and the hero he aspired to be. This second chance was not a burden. It was an opportunity, a reminder that the path to heroism remained laid out before him, waiting for him to tread upon it. With a resolute heart, he closed the door behind him, signaling a decisive step forward. As he stepped out of the shelter, the crisp air greeted him, and a newfound determination drove him toward his destination, the critical point where he hoped his future would take shape. Let's hope it will go well for him. After all, how much trouble could there be in a simple job? 20 minutes later, he was here. Izuku finally arrived at the Chinese restaurant, ready to start his job in this new world. For the most part, at least he wouldn't be dealing with a megalomaniac this time around. But it wasn't just Izuku, he could feel the entire city growing colder by the second. Yet, he refused to let the biting chill overpower him. Survival was paramount. How could he use his gifts to help others if he couldn't first ensure his safety? The green-haired teen understood that he had to take action, regardless of the challenges ahead. This was his opportunity, and he wouldn't let it slip away. The former UA student inhaled deeply before entering the Chinese restaurant, bracing himself for what was about to come. As he opened the door and the bell chimed, he was greeted by Jian, who had been anticipating the arrival of the green-haired teenager at his threshold. "Hey, you're a bit early," Jian pointed out. "Oh, I'm sorry?" Izuku blinked in surprise before apologizing. Jian raised a brow, confused by the teenager's words. "What are you sorry for, young man? You're here, aren't you? Better late than never." The restaurant owner reassured, as the former hero in training was relieved by those words. "Alright, let me show you what's in the back. You'll need to know what's in store here." Jian gave his advice once more. Just as Izuku nodded and followed the restaurant owner to the back. Minutes have elapsed. Izuku was introduced to his new colleagues, primarily the chefs and those responsible for the kitchen and food preparation. Meanwhile, the green-haired teenager noticed the absence of DLVY personnel, a fact Jian confirmed by informing him that he would be the sole DLVY person working that day. Even in the simplest jobs, he always seemed to be the lone wolf, a memory from his past that he could never shake. Jian called out, grabbing the attention of the green-haired teen to tell him something. "Before Gotham became the place that we all know it is, we used to deliver. Every day, people just come in and pick up their food due to the hectic nights in Gotham. My advice is always to keep a weapon or firearm with you," he informed cautiously. Izuku nodded, getting the gist. Right. He narrowed his attention to the containers filled with Chinese food, taking a moment to realize that this DLVY might take longer than expected. "Now, I've got 3 orders, and these places aren't that far in Gotham. Think you can handle it from here?" The restaurant owner inquired. Izuku nodded once again. "Yes, sir," he said with determination. Jian chuckled after hearing that. "Good. Now, put this sweater on, it's time to open a business today." The former UA student nodded once again before slipping on the restaurant's sweater, proudly displaying the establishment's logo and name. Right after that, he was fully aware that he was in for a long day, but for the sake of his loved ones, he was determined to push through. Lost in his thoughts, he was jolted back to reality when a few neatly packaged containers of Chinese food were dropped in front of him. The moment the rich, savory aroma wafted into his nostrils, his mouth watered involuntarily. Memories of a delicious meal he'd savored not too long ago flooded back, making his stomach rumble in anticipation. Though he felt tempted, he had promised himself he wouldn't indulge in fast food too often. Staying in peak condition was a must for him. Each takeout container bore a piece of paper affixed to the top, the address meticulously penned in neat handwriting. As Izuku glanced at it, curiosity piqued within him. Who were the intended clients of this DLVY? A flutter of anxiety crossed his mind at the thought it couldn't possibly be a villain, right? That was the last thing he needed right now. "All right, good luck. In any case, take this with you," Jian said, before surprising the green-haired teen off guard with something unexpected, causing his eyes to widen in shock. Jian had a firearm in his hand, which greatly surprised the green-haired teenager, who wasn't anticipating seeing this, not in a restaurant that only had meals to go, of all places. "What's this for?" Izuku questioned, not expecting to be holding a gun of all things, in a restaurant, especially. In case of any protection, Jien clarified with Izuku, still confused by this action, forcing the restaurant owner to sigh in disbelief. Just in case you run into psychopaths out there. You have used a firearm before, have you, young man? Izuku shook his head. Is that important? He asked curiously, unsure where this was going. Jien sighed, his face set in a serious expression. It's crucial, young man. There are a lot of people out there doing bad things, and the DLVRY boys that I had before were kids around your age who grew up on the streets and knew how to use firearms. Normally, it is against the law to give firearms to a minor of all people, but again, this is Gotham City, you can't take any chances, kid. He asked with consideration. I appreciate your concern, Jien-san, but I think I should be fine, Izuku reassured as Jien cast a skeptical glance at the green-haired teen this time. Trust me, I'll be fine out there, Izuku reassured again as the restaurant owner gave a heavy sigh, this time. Jien sighed before putting the firearms safely back in the small case underneath the front counter. Alright then, good luck out there. Be careful out there, the restaurant owner warned with good intent. Izuku nodded, knowing what he was getting himself into. With a mix of anticipation and excitement, Izuku adjusted the takeout containers nestled snugly in his DLVY bag, a quirky blend of restaurant hospitality and his trusty backpack he gained from the restaurant. He stepped out of the cozy restaurant, the bustling energy of the city swirling around him as he glanced at the note detailing his next stop, East Gotham, near Down. It was just a quick jaunt from where he stood, but he had a job to do. As he approached the alleyway, the world around him quieted, and he scanned the area to ensure he was alone. Satisfied that no one was watching, he activated full cowling at a modest 5%. In an instant, he felt the familiar surge of power coursing through him. He sprang into action, bounding from wall to wall with the grace of a cat leaping between rooftops. The excitement surged through his veins, a rush of adrenaline he couldn't help but embrace. With each leap, he remained cautious, mindful of the precious cargo he carried. The heat radiated gently from his back, a reminder to keep the meal stable for DLVY. Balancing the exhilaration of flight with the responsibility of his mission, he found joy in the dance with gravity, and a wide grin broke across his face. This blend of duty and passion made each jump feel like a celebration of his quirk, a fleeting moment of pure bliss in the heart of a vibrant city. Just as Izuku was about to reach his destination, the sound of a gunshot halted the former UA student in his tracks. A second shot rang out from afar, causing the green-haired teen to turn in the opposite direction to stop the commotion, letting out a reluctant sigh as he did so. No, not today. Although Izuku was against violence, he understood that he couldn't intervene. He had a task at hand. His priority was to secure a place to live. He had made it clear to himself. If he wasn't capable of looking after himself, how could he possibly do so for another? Patience was key. He knew that eventually he would rise to the occasion and do what was necessary. After all, Gotham had other heroes. They were capable of managing the situation. For now, Izuku had to wait. Moreover, dusk was settling in. That's when the chaos of Gotham truly began. Upon reaching the correct address, Izuku double-checked the note before knocking on what appeared to be the door of an apartment complex. After his knocks, a man in his mid-30s to 40s answered, looking surprised to see Izuku. Jigata do for you, sir, Izuku stuttered awkwardly, showing the Chinese food safely in his hands. The man stared at Izuku, and the uneasy silence continued for several seconds. So it's true. You guys are delivering again? He asked with a suspicious expression. This, sir? Is this your order? Izuku inquired, showing the bag shyly in his hands. The man inhaled deeply, a smile spreading across his face as he savored the scent. Yup, recognize that smell anywhere. The man took $12 from his right pocket, along with the tip, and gave them to Izuku, who, in exchange, handed over the meal. Thanks, kid, there's a tip in there for making this way. The man expressed his gratitude warmly. Izuku appeared surprised but gave a nod, acknowledging the tip. Thank you, sir. He spoke with genuine sincerity. No prob, but hey, before you go, let me give some advice. Be careful out there, kid. Gotham's a shithole, and a lot of companies in Gotham went out of business because of it. Watch your back, kid. The man warned grimly. Yeah, so Izuku has heard. Luckily for him, he had faced danger before, so he wasn't scared of what lay ahead. Alright. Izuku nodded, understanding the situation once again. The man shut the door, and the green-haired teen felt a wave of relief, knowing he had completed one part of the job. Alright, that was one DLVRY completed. Now, time to head for the next one. 3 deliveries later. Okay, there was one more to go. As the green-haired teen continued making deliveries, he gradually became accustomed to his surroundings, aided by the small GPS in his pocket and his ability to memorize the city's street layouts. Izuku strolled down the next block. The weight of the evening settled around him. The final DLVRY destination loomed ahead, but as the sun dipped below the horizon, a chill crept into the air, tightening its grip on him. He knew he had to be cautious. Gotham had a way of transforming into a different world after dark. He couldn't help but shake off the unsettling feeling that accompanied his last round of deliveries. The locals had been unusually talkative lately, warning him of the lurking dangers that prowled the streets. Tales of Gotham's rogues echoed in his mind, each a warning reminder of the city's dark reputation. Izuku felt a knot of unease forming in his stomach. He knew he had a job to do, but the shadows around him seemed to whisper secrets of peril, urging him to keep his guard up. And oh boy, there were a lot. Izuku knew villains were living here, but this was getting ridiculous, even for him. Among the intriguing figures in the shadows was a short-statured mob boss known only as Penguin. Despite his lack of notoriety in Izuku's mind, he had been a persistent thought over the past few days. But Penguin wasn't alone in this rogues gallery. There was also Two-Face, with his twisted sense of justice, the Riddler, whose mind games kept everyone guessing, and Scarecrow, a master of fear. Each villain in Gotham had a tangled history with Batman, a connection Izuku couldn't help but find fascinating and a little unsettling. But among all the notorious figures, none struck fear quite like the clown the Joker. Izuku could still vividly recall the chilling accounts he had unearthed in the library, detailing the madman's twisted schemes and chaotic escapades. Each story painted a portrait of a villain whose laughter echoed through the darkest corners of Gotham City, leaving a trail of mayhem and sorrow in his wake. The Joker's cunning intellect, paired with his maniacal sense of humor, made him a formidable adversary, and Izuku couldn't shake the feeling that behind the painted smile lay a depth of madness that was both fascinating and terrifying. At least that's what the young vigilante could figure. After the 3rd DLVI, Izuku observed the GPS instructing him to head a few blocks away from where he was. He noticed the buildings around him were older, indicative of a rougher neighborhood. It reminded him of similar areas he used to pass during his middle school days. Run-down buildings in need of demolition and troubled youths forming gangs, which even pro-heroes had to intervene to disband eventually. This realization made Izuku feel that the city wasn't entirely different, though not significantly so, given that the average civilians were without powers. Lacking quirks or superpowers, they had to rely on weapons for protection should trouble seek them out. They were powerless, unable to do much in this situation. Izuku could relate to that feeling, remembering his life before meeting All Might and gaining his quirk, back when he was quirkless, just like most of the civilians in Gotham City. Upon reaching the destination, the green-haired teen confirmed through the GPS that he had arrived at the correct location. Perfect. Just this DLVY, and Izuku should head home for the night. As the former UA student knocked on the door, a woman's voice came from inside. He pondered over the voice as the door opened to reveal a woman with short black hair and cat-like eyes. She was athletically built and dressed in a black, long-sleeved shirt and pants. Izuku couldn't quite figure out why he was suddenly reminded of one of his former teachers, Midnight Sensei. May she rest in peace, her sacrifices forever etched in his memory. The green-haired teen had left UA Academy partly because of her, determined to prevent anyone else from dying. "Hello, do you need something, young man?" The dark-haired woman asked, wondering what the green-haired teen was doing on her doorstep, snapping the former UA student from his thoughts. I have your dodo," Izuku stated confidently, holding the bag securely in his hands. The woman had a mildly skeptical look on her face, but her eyes suddenly widened as she recalled the order she had placed. Well, I'll be demed. Looks like I was right. Emerald Pagoda is open again. The dark-haired woman replied with a smirk as she brought out her small bag, dug in it, and revealed $20 bills. She handed the bills over to Izuku, and he gave her the box filled with freshly made Chinese food from his backpack. There's an extra tip in there for you, sweetie. Take it as a compliment since not a lot of handsome boys your age deliver in a city like this. The woman winked at the green-haired teen, who blushed slightly at the comment. Yeah, I guess, Izuku said, scratching his head. After Izuku received the money, the woman softly shut the door behind him. The young vigilante made his way back to the Chinese restaurant, observing a group of cats lounging near the woman's window and on the curb. He guessed she liked cats. Who would have thought of that? Anyway, not wanting to judge, the former quirkless teen shook his head, realizing he needed to get a move on. Right after completing the final DLVY, the young inheritor of One for All felt a mix of exhaustion and excitement bubbling within him as he realized it was finally time to return to the Emerald Pagoda. He had worked hard, and now he could afford to treat himself to something special. As he made his way back through the bustling streets, he noted the stark differences between Gotham City and his hometown, Mizudafu. The atmosphere carried a gritty intensity, an urban sprawl alive with energy but shadowed in an undeniable sense of danger. Possibly more dangerous than Mizudafu, Gotham presented a stark contrast, with heroes not active in every corner, vastly different from the former UA student recognized from his original world. A realization that thrilled and unnerved him. Both of those statements were true. Seeking a quicker route, Izuku took a shortcut through the Bowery, a neighborhood known for its eclectic blend of culture and chaos. His GPS guided him deftly, allowing him to sidestep more prominent thoroughfares bustling with late-night activity. As twilight fell, the sky turned into a mesmerizing scene, a Venetian mix of deep crimson and black, casting long shadows and wrapping the city in an air of mystery. The transition from day to night sent a sharp chill through the air, intensifying the unmistakable pulse of Gotham, which came alive as the sun vanished beyond the horizon. Izuku felt the temperature drop, the cool night air contrasting with the day's warmth. Although he was no stranger to fighting against the odds, he understood that in this new environment he had to be more vigilant. He could sense that trouble could lurk around any corner. As he prepared to activate full cowling, gaining confidence in his stride, an unsettling feeling washed over him. Instinctively, he strained his ears and caught the unmistakable sound of a click, sharp and clear, echoing in the stillness around him like the ping of a firearm. In that instant, his danger sense activated, sending a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. His heart pounded as he turned to face four shadowy figures clad in black, their motives shrouded in the same darkness that engulfed the city. The night was vibrant, carrying with it a sharp chill that permeated the air, a vivid reminder of the city's unforgiving nature as it morphed into a nocturnal playground. It was clear, he was no longer a mere DLVRY boy in a strange city. He was a force to be reckoned with, ready to confront whatever threats lay ahead in a world fraught with peril. Of course, even he knew this wasn't going to be easy. "Hey!" The man in black shouted at the green-haired teen, aiming his gun straight at Izuku's forehead. Yet, Izuku displayed no fear. He had encountered far worse dangers previously. "What the F do you think you're doing on our turf?" The man in black continued to threaten, his gun unwavering and aimed directly at the green-haired teen. "I was just passing through. I don't want any trouble," Izuku said calmly. "Yeah, and what gives you the right to step into our territory? Think you're even cute, huh, kid?" The man threatened, his gun pointing at the green-haired teen who didn't have an ounce of fear within him. Izuku sighed inwardly, feeling the weight of the moment press heavily on his shoulders. He wasn't seeking trouble. His sole desire was to return to his modest workplace and finally establish a sense of home in this chaotic city. But as he stood facing the two thugs blocking his path, it was clear that his plans were about to take an unwelcome turn. The air crackled with tension, and the faint glow of the city seemed to dim around him. The green-haired inheritor of One for All found himself at a crossroads. He could either relinquish the hard-earned money from a recent, perilous DLVRY or prepare to engage in what could quickly become a dangerous altercation. With two of his quirks at his disposal, he knew he could easily overpower them. Yet there was a lingering hesitation in his heart. Drawing attention to himself in Gotham City could have dire consequences. The risk of piquing the interest of the authorities, especially the ominous figure of the Bat, loomed large in his mind. For now, he opted to tread carefully. He recalled the importance of discretion in a place where every shadow could harbor danger. Perhaps, with a slide of luck, he could utilize a quick smokescreen combined with the speed-enhancing effects of his Vigilante quirk, allowing him to incapacitate the thugs before the sirens could wail into the night. Just as he prepared to issue a warning, his mouth opening subconsciously, a voice rang out in the distance, slicing through the tension like a knife. The green-haired teen's heart raced as he turned, curiosity and anxiety intertwining in a chaotic dance. "Hey, pick on another big group of hooligans instead, why don't you?" A voice called out, sounding distinctly feminine this time, catching the entire group off guard. All of them, including Izuku, looked at the top building, which revealed a woman dressed in a black suit resembling a bat. Those who lived in Gotham didn't even need to guess who this was. Batgirl stood boldly in the open, a confident mix of seriousness and cockiness etched across her face, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. "Sheet, it's Batgirl." The thug, who had initially aimed his gun at Izuku, redirected it toward Batgirl. She swiftly leaped from the building, using her cape to glide downwards. With a strong kick, she disarmed the thug, sending the gun flying from his grasp as he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The second thug tried to pull his gun from his pocket and brandish it. Batgirl quickly drew a batarang and hurled it towards him, disarming him of the weapon from his grasp. She followed up with a potent uppercut, knocking the thug unconscious with a single strike. Izuku watched in awe as the former UA student saw the Bat Vigilante effortlessly subdue the thugs. Her use of gadgets to neutralize them quickly was awe-inspiring. While observing Batgirl dispatch the third thug with a swift punch to the abdomen, Izuku's attention shifted to the final thug, who, unbeknownst to her, had drawn his gun and was aiming at her. His green eyes widened in alarm, realizing immediate action was necessary. Spotting a dirty milk carton by the nearby trash cans, he swiftly picked it up. Gathering kinetic energy, the green-haired teenager hurled the carton at the thug's head with a trace of Vigilante, making him release his gun. Without noticing the use of his quirk, Batgirl, seizing the opportunity, dashed towards the distracted thug and landed two swift punches, one to his stomach and another to his face, rendering him unconscious. Just like that, all of the thugs were on the ground, unconscious, courtesy of Batgirl, with a bit of help from Izuku. "You okay?" Batgirl asked, concerned for the green-haired teen. Izuku nodded, dusting off his clothes with his hands, then shifted his focus to the bat-themed heroine. "Yeah, I'm fine. Was not expecting something like this to happen." Batgirl had a look of empathy, knowing that trouble wasn't rare around this location. "Unfortunately, this is Gotham, which is not a place I recommend going on vacation," she advised. "Yeah, I'm aware of that now," Izuku joked, noticing she wasn't wrong. He paused for a moment, his eyes narrowing as they focused on her costume. The pointed ears on the mask and the bat logo displayed prominently on her chest caught his attention, and the former quirkless teen couldn't help but ponder something specific about it. "So, are you with Batman?" he asked innocently. "You could say that. I'm Batgirl, one of his protégés. I've been in the hero game for a while. Since then, Gotham has been an interesting place to handle things," the bat-themed heroine proclaimed confidently. Izuku doesn't need to recall that. He's heard plenty from the deliveries he's done in the past hours. "Yeah, from what I remember, this city has the most crime in America, doesn't it?" he asked simply out of curiosity about the subject. "Yep, sounds about right. It's one of the most infamous reasons why Gotham is a popular landmark," Batgirl stated, as Izuku knew he couldn't argue with that logic. "That's pretty ironic in a way," the green-haired teen stated. Batgirl smiled, agreeing with his words. "Tell me about it. Anyway, I should get going. Gotham can't take care of itself if I'm not around. Get back home safely, kid," the bat-themed heroine lightly advised in concern as she turned her back, preparing to leave the area. That might have occurred were it not for a single word that stopped her. "Wait!" Izuku stopped Batgirl in her tracks. I have a question, why are you doing this? The green-haired teen asked, curious about her actions. Doing what? The bat-themed heroine questioned with a confused expression. Why are you helping other people? Given that Gotham is a corrupt city, why do you risk your life out there? Izuku asked, hoping there was a reason for her heroics. Because it's what I want. A reason to do the right thing. Where can I make a difference? Batgirl stated that her smile appeared across her expression due to her pride in doing what she did for the innocent. Because Gotham needs more good people, someone who is not afraid to stand up for the little guy, it needs hope. And that's what I hope to do someday. Izuku stood, simultaneously shocked and relieved by those words, recognizing that they were not too different on this occasion. I understand. Believe me, I hope to do the same someday in the future. Izuku said. Batgirl smiled, understanding his words. I'm glad to hear that. If you want to help, there are a few homeless shelters that are looking for help, ones that I know are owned by Bruce Wayne, if that gives you an idea. Yeah, I heard, Izuku remarked, fully aware that this was nothing out of the ordinary for him. Good to hear, but I'd better go. Stay safe, and glad to see Emerald Pagoda is open again. Maybe I'll make a call, see if they deliver on rooftops. The bat-themed heroine cheerfully remarked, appreciating the thought of enjoying a meal while out on patrol for a change. Izuku smiled. Of course, I can ask my boss if they do. It'd be worth seeing one day, Batgirl said with a smile. As she spoke, the bat-themed heroine fired her grapple hook, swinging up to a nearby building before disappearing toward her next destination, leaving the green-haired teen staring after her in awe. After the conflict had ended, Batgirl soon disappeared, attending to her matters with the city, as Izuku continued to walk to where the restaurant was. He still couldn't believe his luck to encounter one of the city's well-known heroes standing before him. It seemed like he had a knack for these things, as it was how he encountered All Might and a few per-heroes before the green-haired successor started his journey at UA Academy to become the greatest hero at the time. Still, he had hoped for a quiet night, but that was quickly slipping away. As the young foreigner stepped into the quiet restaurant, he felt a wave of relief wash over him. He'd made it through the night unscathed, well, almost. There was that tense moment when he was held at gunpoint during his last DLVY, but he preferred to focus on the silver lining, at least it hadn't happened at the beginning of his shift. With a wry smile and a sweat drop fell on the right side of his forehead, he took a deep breath, ready to put the drama behind him and enjoy the late evening. Right as the green-haired teen swung open the door to the restaurant, a surprised expression washed over Jian-san's face. It was evident that he couldn't quite believe his eyes. His Dogoy boy had made it through the night without a hitch. Jian-san felt both impressed and relieved by the unexpected success, as a moment of quietness lingered in the air. You're back? Did you complete the deliveries? Jian asked. Izuku nodded, confirming his answer. Huh, guess I'm back in business. Jian joked, still in disbelief about the accomplishment. After handing over the tips, Jian counted all the money Izuku received on his first day. Once the bills were counted, he handed a generous amount to the green-haired teen, who stared with an amazed look on his face. Here your cut, kid. Jian offered. Thank you, Jian-san. Izuku smiled, expressing his gratitude. Wait here, I've got something for you, Jian said before heading to the back of the kitchen, leaving the green-haired teen curious about what the restaurant owner intended to show him. After a few minutes or so, the scent of food hit Izuku's nostrils as he stared at the freshly made food Jian-san had in his hands. Here for you, kid. Jian offered kindly as Izuku blinked at the box. Good job. Kid, enjoy your food. Thank you, Jian-san, Izuku said, showing gratitude to the restaurant owner. No problem. Now go. I need to clean up here. We are closed after all. Jian stated, knowing he had to close for the night. Izuku nodded, getting the gist. After taking the food for himself, thanking the restaurant owner once again for his generosity, and leaving the restaurant without any trouble, the green-haired teen felt relieved that the night had gone smoothly. He did need a quick break. As he wandered into an empty alley, he swiftly activated one of his quirks, Float, and without drawing any attention, Izuku rose to the top of a building. Taking a moment to settle down, he prepared to enjoy his meal. It had been a long time since he'd eaten anything after waking up in this unfamiliar city. His green eyes flickered over the container, where a modest feast awaited him: succulent beef nestled beside fluffy rice, vibrant carrots peeking out among a medley of vegetables, and a tangle of noodles resting beside them. Though the presentation was simple, it didn't matter to him. It was food, and that was good enough. Izuku clasped his hands together in a prayer-like gesture, closing his eyes to express heartfelt gratitude for the humble meal before him. Itadakimasu. Izuku beamed with a humble grin, expressing heartfelt gratitude for the meal. Once his thanks were given, he eagerly dove into the dish as though it were a culinary masterpiece from a luxurious restaurant. Every bite was a delightful journey, and before he knew it, he had devoured every last morsel, relishing the contentment of a satisfying meal. It was a good meal, after all. After finishing his meal, Izuku used one of his quirks to navigate a safe alleyway. He tossed the empty container and utensils into a nearby trash can and continued on his way to the shelter. Soon, after this week, he would find peace within himself. Ultimately, it's about seeking out something that could genuinely help, like finally finding a place to call home. As the shadows fell over Gotham, Izuku felt a sense of urgency creeping in. He knew it was getting late, and the streets would soon be crawling with a nightfall that came with a surge of danger, transforming the city into a labyrinth of threats lurking in every corner. He had to navigate its treacherous alleys with care. A determined glint set in his eyes, he locked onto the faint glow of the shelter ahead, fully aware of the hidden danger that awaited him in the city's treacherous alleys. Gotham was not the same after sundown. It morphed into a city where villains thrived and innocent lives hung in the balance. As he traversed the narrow, winding streets, the quiet hum of the city was interrupted by distant sirens and sporadic shouts, reminders of the chaos lurking nearby. Izuku reflected on the words of the bat-themed heroine whom he had encountered not too long ago, her voice resonating in his thoughts as she expressed her aspiration to effect change in the world. Her sentiments rekindled within him a fervent resolve to aid those in need, act selflessly, and advocate for the cause of justice. Her message resonated deeply with him, reaffirming his dream to be a hero who stood up for the weak and those who could not defend themselves. Memories flooded back to him, the voice that had summoned him to this unfamiliar world, urging him to use his extraordinary gifts for the greater good. It was a big reminder that saving others was not just a calling. It was the best way he could honor the legacy of heroes. He found strength in his past actions. The courageous action at the bank where he rescued a terrified woman and her child from the clutches of a ruthless villain, and just the day after, his daring intervention to save a young girl and the kind-hearted man who had offered him a card at a local shelter in a time of need. It was not merely those moments in this world. He needed to recall the achievements from his original one. Eri would have continued to be a pawn to overhaul if he had not resolved to confront the mad Yakuza, and Todoroki would never have decided to use his other quirk if he had not been convinced that his power was his own and belonged to no one else. These actions embodied the true essence of a hero. All Might said so himself. With each memory he recalled, Izuku felt his resolution harden. The flickering hope within him ignited like a flame. He understood now that his journey as a hero was far from over. There were still lives to save, still battles to fight, and as long as he was determined and willing, he would make a difference in this dark, unpredictable city. In the heart of Gotham, he said to himself that anyone could be a hero, no matter the odds stacked against them. With no one watching, Izuku confidently stepped into a small, dark alleyway. He activated full cowl, green lightning crackling through his body as he pulled his gray hoodie over his head. With a mighty leap, he jumped onto the next building, determined to return to his current living destination. Things will be different and will be in his favor this time. 2 days later. Rent's due on the 1st of the month. Don't forget it and don't be late. A middle-aged man with gray hair, brown eyes, and a mustache sternly reminded a certain green-haired teen about the rent. Yes, sir. Izuku nodded, understanding the circumstances of his living situation. All right, don't forget it. Hope you got a job to afford this place, or else I won't be afraid to throw you out in the streets. The landlord repeated his reminder, his tone growing firmer as the green-haired teen nodded, fully grasping the seriousness of the rent situation. Yeah, he got the gist. Izuku nodded, fully understanding the matter. Once the landlord spoke those words, he offered a final reminder to the green-haired teen before leaving the set of keys for the door. The former UA student felt a sense of relief knowing that this time, there was a resident ready to call this space home. As Izuku inserted the key into the lock and turned it, a rush of anticipation filled him. He pushed the door open and was immediately greeted by darkness. Feeling his way along the wall, he discovered a light switch and flicked it on, illuminating the room in a soft glow. The small studio apartment revealed itself to him, a front room unadorned and stark, featuring only a sparse mattress on the floor, a compact kitchen area equipped with a sink and a refrigerator, and a quaint bathroom tucked away in the corner. Above the mattress, small windows let in a trickle of natural light, offering glimpses of the world outside, a far cry from his previous living situation. Izuku recognized that this apartment was reminiscent of the old one that he had shared with his mother, yet it bore its distinct character. This building, part of a public housing initiative, provided a sense of privacy and space that he hadn't anticipated. Unlike his old apartment, which was a bit cramped, this one was nestled amongst similar structures, each one a haven for individuals seeking sanctuary. Despite its simplicity, the space felt welcoming and functional, and Izuku knew he could make it work. It may not have been lavish, but it was a fresh start, and for him, that was enough. Observing a nearby object, the young successor of One for All approached it, discovering it to be a bag containing various clothing items. Among them were a green hoodie identical to the one Izuku had obtained from the donation store, a pair of black ski goggles, fingerless black gloves included with the set, and Gran Torino's yellow scarf, completing the assortment. He knew he would return to being the hero one day, but first, he had to be ready for it. Soon, it would take some time before Izuku resumed his heroic duties. He would require an appropriate outfit for the occasion. Particularly on this occasion, he could not afford to jeopardize his identity while carrying out heroic deeds as a vigilante. After all, maintaining secrecy was an essential characteristic of being a superhero. Meanwhile, in another part of Gotham, a gunshot rang out, and a body hit the ground with a finality that left no doubt of its consequence. Another shot rang out, striking flesh and sending another body to the ground. Kill him! A henchman screamed as he pulled his gun out of his pocket. Before he could get a shot, the henchman fell to the ground dead for not pulling the trigger sooner. More henchmen began to scream as a lot of them were silenced by the mysterious intruder in red, shooting them as more bodies fell to the ground with their blood staining the floors. They were scum after all. Another henchman was seized by the figure in red. His neck was snapped with a swift and efficient motion as his deceased body fell to the ground. Though less messy yet equally lethal, he favored utilizing his toys when it came to extinguishing a life. A criminal's life, for that matter. Once he had dispatched the henchmen, the bodies lay strewn across the empty warehouse as he strode purposefully forward, intent on confronting the ringleader behind it all. The smell of blood began to permeate the warehouse due to the corpses littering the area, many of them dispersed as a result of the recent altercation. He didn't realize it was getting late. He had to hurry, the clock was ticking, and the police would be on his tail any minute now. The city was crawling with mobs that demanded immediate attention, but he knew he had to be strategic about his approach. Taking them all down at once was possible, but he had to focus his efforts on the smaller gangs first. To assert his authority effectively, he needed to start by targeting a lesser mob. The choice was clear. Either confront the Irish mob or the Russian mob. After a moment of deliberation, he decisively chose the Irish mob. One reason for that is that they have a history tied to the Falcone crime family and are rivals with Cobblepot. This could be his opportunity to close in on the Penguin, allowing him to eliminate more of Gotham's unwanted criminals systematically. The Penguin was undoubtedly one of the most powerful crime bosses of his time, giving him access to crucial intel necessary to track him down and eliminate the threat he posed. Upon stepping out of the warehouse, his ears perked, hearing the voice of one of the men who lay on the ground, appearing to be alive even after being shot at. Where do you think you're going? The man demanded to know as his attacker sighed. On the bright side, he could extract valuable intel about the Penguin or any other notorious mob boss lurking in Gotham. He strode confidently over to the injured henchman, gun raised as he began to issue his threats, fully aware that intimidation was the only language these lowlifes understood. "Where is the Penguin? Last I remember, you boys had beef with him due to that street war that occurred in Gotham not too long ago." The man in red demanded answers as he crouched to get a clearer view. "Why should I tell you anything?" the injured henchman demanded angrily. "Wrong answer," he stated firmly as he pressed his finger onto the man's injury, eliciting a sharp cry of pain from the injured henchman. "Last chance, and I may let you walk out of here alive. Where is the Penguin and his gang?" the man in red demanded, his tone becoming harsher each second. The henchman trembled, resolutely shaking his head in defiance. I don't know. Last time I heard of that fat ass was when he was handling deals underground and other places in Gotham, some cage-fighting sheet. I don't know, man. Just please, let me go." So the Penguin was doing underground sheet this time. Cobblepot always had his secret ways of doing business with other criminals, just as bad as him. "Thanks for the tip," he stated firmly before rising to his feet and turning to walk away from the injured henchman, who exhaled in relief. But it was a fleeting moment, as the attacker in red quickly drew his gun and shot the wounded henchman dead on the spot. Blood stained the nearby walls, and fragments of brain matter lay scattered on the ground, a grim testament to the irrevocability of that ruthless act. Well, look on the bright side. At least he was closer to finding the most wanted criminals in Gotham. Over the past 3 days, he kept tracking down Gotham's most wanted criminals, sought after by the mob or various crime families. It was nothing out of the ordinary for him. Gotham was teeming with such figures, making it easy to hunt them down one by one. As he stepped outside the warehouse, the sound of alarms began to fill the air. That was his cue. The man in red knew he needed to get the hell out of there soon. As he slipped away from the scene, a sense of urgency pushed him forward. Time was not on his side. With each ticking minute, he put more distance between himself and the looming presence of the police, the adrenaline surging through him, urging him to move faster. Paranoia began to consume him. Dealing with the police was one matter, but he was in no condition or